Hello everybody and welcome back to the Resurrected AWIY Review podcast as ever. Fuck me, my name is David and I am sitting... I was going to try and figure out like some sort of treasure chest or treasure chart analogy, but I just didn't think quick enough. And
maybe we should define the distance in leagues.
Yeah, yes, how many leagues? How long is a league?
Question!
Is it like a nautical mile? Nah. Because it's leagues under the sea, and I think it must be rare.
Or is it depth then?
20,000 leagues under the sea. Because I would think like a mile is a fucking deep ocean. Right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So it won't be in miles a league, it'll be like tens of meters maybe.
On land, a league, it's 3 nautical miles.
What's the difference between a mile and a nautical mile?
Well, apparently not a lot, because it's 3.4 miles.
That's annoying.
So
that's annoying. It's different.
So if you want an accurate number, it would be 150 leagues.
Across the... Well, I was going to say across the sea, but there's maybe a few large rivers between you and I, but mainly just land.
Yeah, the Wash maybe.
The fourth as well.
Yeah, definitely the fourth.
Perhaps the Tay. I'm not sure. I would think the Tay.
Maybe the Tyne.
Yeah.
Probably the Ouse at some point. That goes for fucking ages. Video game podcast, everybody.
Welcome. We're here. I just want to say I've been two things. One, I've just realised you've colour coded yourself to this podcast, so congratulations for that.
Thanks.
Two, I'm surprised and quite frankly disgusted that it's taken you 49 episodes to put a Zelda game under the belt.
Yeah, I'm ashamed.
Yeah, you've let yourself down. I mean, we've checked off Mario, we've checked off Metroid.
Yeah.
We've checked off all the. We checked with a Castlevania. Well, yeah.
I have foisted a lot of shit on you.
We've got Halo,
you've not played
Gears. Before. Have we got any big Sony franchises? Days Gone.
Not till next episode.
I don't know if that counts as big.
Yeah, we've not done. That's a good question. I guess the biggest Sony franchise we've done is obviously Parasite Eve.
Obviously,
we're keeping it in the big guns.
Oh, what a game that is! I got my Twitch. What do you call it? It's like Twitch Wrapped. You know, like
everyone's doing that at the moment.
I was looking at mine, and my top 2 games streamed. I did 127 streams over the last year, which is quite a lot. That's like one every 3 odd days. But my top 2 games were Metroid was number 1, so I streamed that the most this year. Sitting in second place was Dino Crisis. So it's quite a good year.
Excellent. I got my Nintendo one through, and my top 3 most played games of the year were Sega Mega Drive Collection, Nintendo Switch Online, Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online, Super Nintendo. That's what I'm living in.
Do you know what games? Do you know what games they were? What games have you played the most of those?
I can guarantee that Shining Force 2 was my most played game this year, or maybe even Shining Force 1 and 2 on the Mega Drive collection, because they're like long Fire Emblem style RPGs that I was reviewing for Sega Mania. So that's why.
For all of those, did you?
The first one, yeah. The second one, I played enough to review it because it's basically the same thing, and was like, that was while I was on holiday. I think I was just smashing through it anyway, and then I got bored. But that's a very disappointing result to find no actual Nintendo Switch games on there. Just old games.
I don't know. Mine's probably Mario Kart would be the most.
You probably got that same email, you know.
Yeah, I just don't know what email that would be attached to.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I got a Reddit one as well, but it didn't load properly, so I don't know what that was going to be. But God knows what that's going to tell me.
I got
the Twitch thing as well, but I don't think I read it.
My Reddit. Oh, my like hours watched, because like my sort of go to is, I think we spoke about this week, is I sit down at my desk, open up my bunch of news articles, open up Twitch, and then Twitch is just on all day. So I have watched an ungodly amount of Twitch. It's like 2,500 hours or something like that over the course of the year.
Oh man!
But that must be close to, like, I don't know how much a working week is. Well, it's like 37 and a half is a working week, but I don't know what that would be annually. But even sometimes when I'm sitting playing video games, I have a Twitch stream on so that my laptop doesn't fall asleep if I'm not looking at it. Because I can't be bothered just turning off sleep.
Can you get it from the app? I don't know if I can.
Well, that's where I got the notification from. It was at the bottom, and then I clicked on it and it showed me all that nonsense. It showed me like the global stuff as well. But the global stuff wasn't very interesting, to be honest.
I'd imagine my most streamed thing would be Diddy Kong Racing, I guess.
Oh yeah, probably. And
I just clicked on Discover, and it was just like gamer girls everywhere just then. I've never even watched any, and the only time I probably would have watched any, if it would have been you going, check out this absolute fucking unit that Murray watches, and I'd go, oh yeah, he's a disgrace, isn't he? And that'd have been it. But then it just tars me forever as some kind of thirst magnet.
A girl I've been watching on silent over the last week, she's playing Elden Ring twice at the same time. So she's playing it on
I saw a clip of this.
She's playing it on a dance mat while also while playing it on PC, while also playing it with a controller on PS5. And she's like trying to do the same bosses at the same time. She's maniac, an absolute maniac, but it's fun to watch.
That is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Speaking of Elden Ring, I did have a funny thought to myself earlier on, thinking about our game of the year that we'll be doing in early January, and just thinking like, game of the year stuff is probably one of the easiest SEO things to get you noticed, where you do a game of the year, whatever. People are up for that at that sort of time, towards the end of the year, beginning of the new year.
Yeah.
And yet ours is entirely focused on, you have to basically know the lore of A Winner Is You, or you won't know why we're talking about fucking whatever the hell shit we played this year. Like some old bollocks. They're like, why the hell is Parasite Eve biggest surprise? What are you on about?
2022. And on that note, since it's Christmas, we're having a Christmas beer.
Yeah,
good.
My hoppy Xmas is finished. I'm going to go get another beer whenever we have a break. Oh, you got your cool little cup again.
My Brewdog cup.
I got a cup that I stole from the Cambridge Junction that I could use, I suppose, because I went there and they charged me a £1 deposit for the cup, and then I accidentally threw it all over the floor halfway through the show and was like, didn't even get to drink a beer out of it, so I'm definitely going to take the cup.
Fair, yeah. Quite right.
You charged me a deposit. I assumed you expected I was going to nick it, so I did.
That's a cheap cup. That is a cheap cup.
I mean, it's a cheap cup as well.
Do you think it's probably bulk buy? Be less than the value of £1. I haven't told you I've been continuing my Bitmap books purchasing. So there's the one we both bought, that I'm Too Young to Die.
Great.
I also bought
probably great.
Super Nintendo Visual Compendium, which is very, very good. That's
Wait, is it Super Nintendo or Super Famicom?
SNES/Super Famicom, a Visual Compendium.
Oh, very nice. Bit of both.
Yeah. It's
like a bisexual.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. That's my latest splurge.
Back to beer briefly. Do you ever grow your moustache long enough that you get it caught in ring pulls? Because I get it all the time, and then Rachel has a go at me for screaming in the middle of a silent room because it really fucking hurts.
Yeah, the odd occasion, but I sort of I feel like I look really odd when my moustache gets quite bushy, so that's the one bit I keep control of. So I'll keep that relatively trim, and then when I notice my beard is looking odd because it's totally out of proportion with my moustache, that's when I cut it back and then just go again.
Yeah. Do you know what ring pulls are for? Do you know what the actual function of them is supposed to be?
They're not for straws, are they?
They are, look. That's where your straw goes. For everyone watching you on YouTube, that's where your straw goes.
Well, you're getting the good content. If you're listening to us, you need to pop over to YouTube so you can see Alex color coding and Alex giving us a lesson on ring pulls.
Yeah, we're wearing Christmas jumpers. And David's got Zelda. David's always got the box of the game we're talking about, just to prove he's legit. Unless he doesn't own it, and then he doesn't have it.
Or I've downloaded it, like... Oh, we didn't do any Amish Warlords in the end, did we? I was going to say... But actually, I may own that as well. I think I'm talking rubbish. Yes, I always...
That is notoriously cheap as far as I can remember. I think I got mine for like £2.
And I do have it, so I'm talking rubbish.
There we go. You're the realest man in the room.
The realist
that
of
room,
the
anyway.
reals. Alex, we played Wind Waker. Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker.
We did, because as of this very day that we're recording, the 13th of December, the game is 20 years old.
It's almost like we planned it.
It's almost like we planned it. And kept telling everyone we planned it for about a month and a half.
Given that, well, I mean, two things on that, I suppose. One, it's like breaking a Winner Is You tradition to actually say we're going to play a game and then appear with a podcast about it. That's unusual.
We've been thoroughly on top of what we promised this last month and a bit.
I'd say since...
I'm proud of us.
Certainly, yeah, we do well. And the second thing is something that I've forgotten and will have to shout out when I remember. I was going to say two things. One was, we're on schedule. No, it's gone. Yep. It is completely gone. Never mind. Sorry, folks.
Well, before I start spaffing everybody with a whole ton of knowledge, let's get your early pod thoughts. Now, I've had some thoughts from your lovely lady saying David didn't enjoy playing this one very much, I don't think, which I do not believe, because I saw text message proof of you saying, I love this game. So tell us, melt that together and tell us what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, I don't know what planet she's on, to be honest. I think this is an absolutely wonderful game. It is just... There are, like, on previous... If you're up, Alex mentioned a Winner Is You lore in previously on a Winner Is You. A Zelda is a franchise that I really like Link to the Past.
I was just about to say, tell us how many you've knocked off in your life.
I really like Link to the Past, and I like, but I've never completed Ocarina of Time, I don't think. So really,
I remember you telling me you struggled with that because you came to it so much later, just for the 3DS version, and they didn't de-age it, other than graphically, I would say.
So that's
and so you found that
to a greatest extent. That's largely why I've had a bit of a barrier with Zelda games, in that I've always come late to them, and I've come late to them, and I've come to them without the sort of pre-inbuilt Nintendo nostalgia that I know you used to have. So there's like the odd Nintendo franchise that I like a lot, like Banjo-Kazooie is maybe one of the best ever, but like for a lot of the time, the way Nintendo sort of treat their fans and treat their properties, I end up feeling quite burned by them. So I perhaps have maybe a dimmer view on Nintendo games than I would organically, if that makes sense. But there's the odd time when you're playing a Nintendo game, and it's what Nintendo have always done and continue to do the best and better than anyone else in the industry, is just create games with a sense of pure joy. And this is like this to me, when I was playing Wind Waker, is what I felt with it. Like we'll get to it, I'm sure, but there's little niggles and annoyances and like quality of life stuff. And funny that I'm saying quality of life, because we played the Wii U version, which is the version that has had quality and life improvements to it. But there's like things that I found quite annoying, but for the most part, this is a game that just sort of encapsulates the wonder of pure like adventure, the adventurous spirit that Zelda seems to try and instill in its players. And it's just the sort of the wonder of being this little sort of green, inexperienced kid being thrust out into the big bad world on his own and having to find his own way, and just that sort of fun. The only thing I can think of, just sort of like, when you're at your island at the beginning of the game and you set off and you're just sort of like a kid with his backpack on, ready to have an adventure. And that's what the Zelda games are for the most part. Although there are bits in this that are incredibly dark. They're not really dark. They're not really dark games. They're just fun. That's the only. I'm not doing a good job of explaining it really, but yeah, they just create a sense of wonder and excitement, and they have an innocence to them that I think a lot of maybe modern, more gritty, dark games don't have, and that a lot of the industry is sort of shunned and moved away from. This is just an innocent, pure, joyous experience, and I don't think there's any other company that does it like this, and I don't think there's any other game franchise that does it quite like this either. And yeah, it's left me sort of feeling like, to put a bow on that, when Nintendo get me, they get me hard. They just don't always get me, and it takes something sometimes either just to be, because I've tried to play this game before, and I think I got to the end of the first dungeon and fell off, and it takes maybe something like this to sort of push me over that hump, just to sort of see what these games have to offer. And what a lovely game it is. What a lovely game. That's the only thing, the best way to describe it is it's just a nice game.
It is. There's so many moments in it where it's just a relaxing, lovely time.
Yeah.
Like there are some challenging elements, but it's not overly taxing. Apparently, it was actually toned down difficulty-wise because Miyamoto said it was too hard.
So the Wii U version is easier.
No, the original game.
Oh right, okay.
So the original game, during development, Miyamoto said this is too hard. You need to tone that down. So they did, and I think to make up for that, they have now, in the HD version, they added hero mode, which is like a harder mode.
You don't get
where
health
the enemies do
pickups.
double damage and stuff. Yeah, I mean the joke is obviously the meme is that Zelda has always had a hard mode. It's called "Don't collect the heart pieces" and just play with 3 hearts the whole time. That's the hard mode of Zelda.
Do people do that? Maniacs.
Yeah. But it's weird to think as well that this game and most of the Zelda games seem to, it's almost like it's cyclical, where this is like interspersed either side of it is the darker Zelda games, because you've got Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess either side of this game, the 2 darkest games that they've done. And even Breath of the Wild was relatively dark compared to Skyward Sword, which came after Wind Waker. So they seem to, I don't know, they seem to like completely, obviously they revamped the way that it looks and the theme and the setting and stuff pretty much every time that they do a new one of these games, as they do with Mario. But it does seem like they go the happy, friendly, childish, sort of childlike way, then regret it, or people say, "Yeah, it's great, but you could have done it darker," and then they go, "Yeah, okay,
yeah,
all right, we'll do an adult one again," and then they go back again. That actually can lead me on to a lot I want to talk about, actually, because of the development of the game. So, have you seen the Space World 2000 demo of the Link versus Ganondorf like fight for the GameCube launch? That was like the big demo video.
I don't think so, but it may have popped up during our Luigi's Mansion stuff, because we did watch some.
Yes,
space.
it did.
So I may have done, yes.
Yeah,
yes, I did.
It was that same thing.
Because was it not like a really realistic Link or something they were going for? Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
So they basically started. Well, they already knew that the GameCube was being developed and ready to go while they were making Majora's Mask, which was basically just like a reusing of the assets with some new direction from Ocarina of Time, obviously, because it's built on the same engine. Blah blah blah. So they actually started development on Wind Waker right after they released Majora's Mask in 2000. And Space World, as we discussed on that Luigi's Mansion podcast, was Nintendo's own E3 that they could have all to themselves. So they used to quite, not totally shun it, but they would put less effort into E3 back in the day because they had too many people to compete with. They would just do their own event and be like, now we've got the entire media spotlight on us. Which is where they unveiled the GameCube with this video of Link and Ganondorf having this super realistic fight. It did look amazing at the time. It's really dated and looks terrible now. But Eiji Aonuma, who is the director of the director of Zelda, has been for a while after he took it from Miyamoto. He hated it. He sort of said, that I've lost my place. He said it's not Zelda. It wasn't the type of Zelda he imagined he wanted to make. It didn't contain any big surprises. It wasn't any revelations going on. It was more of a continuation of Ocarina of Time, just better looking. So he was not down with that. He wanted this Nintendo philosophy of we're going to change it every time. We're going to, reinvent our own wheel every time we bring out a new
Majora's Mask
entry.
is maybe the Zelda I know the least about. I know it has.
What about
something to do
Twilight
with
Princess?
maths.
I was going to ask you how much you know about that and how much if you've ever played that.
I've played about 4 hours of Twilight Princess
on the Wii
on the Wii, yeah.
with the waggly.
Yeah, so many moons ago.
Okay.
There's in fact maybe more. There's one of the dungeons where you get like mag boots. Is that the right Zelda?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I got to.
That's one you got to do like a sumo wrestle against a Goron, isn't it?
I got to there. And then fell off. So yeah, in Majora's Mask, I haven't even touched. Everything else I have played at least a bit of. What's the one that was called? Oh no, this is the one that was known as Zelda, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
That's actually what I was going to get onto next. So we'll pick that up in a second.
Segues.
Yeah.
I haven't even really seen gameplay of Majora's Mask. I've seen like the odd bit in piece. I know there's something to do with. Do you play a flute at a moon or something, or wear a mask in the moon chain?
You get an ocarina again, and then it's like to do with time. You only got 3 days till the moon hits the earth, and you got to keep rewinding time and things like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Again, like I'm trying to think. Like I don't know if I don't have like extensive knowledge of any Zelda game really, other than Link to the Past, but. This is the one I know the least about. I couldn't really tell anything about the story, and I think probably Wind Waker would have been on a par with it until obviously we've played it now. So
yeah,
I assume we're going to get to it as well. But I find some of the, even as a not massive Zelda fan, some of the revelations like mind blowing that you get in Wind Waker.
I think there probably will be even more so when I kind of explain where its place is in the overall lore, because that's.
Can't wait.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, I think you were talking about how it was like a bit retconned. It probably is, based on the Hyrule Historia stuff. But we will delve into that when we get to the story later on.
Yes.
Which I do think is really good for this game. But yeah, back to the development. So apparently it started basically just like one of the art designers just doodled a little picked like a cartoon of Link. And then he showed his mate, and his mate was like, "Oh, that's cool," and drew like a moblin, the kind of like big pig guys with the spears. They both drew like their own cartoon version of it, and then did this sort of drawing of them fighting each other in a field. So they all started to love this, and apparently Miyamoto didn't. He, according to Aonuma, I think he was speaking to Digital Spy. He said that he literally cringed when he saw it. And they actually kept it a secret from Miyamoto for a while because they were worried he was going to hate it as well. They kind of knew he wasn't going to like it for some reason. Which, when you think about when this was unveiled, like Miyamoto was spearheading a lot of it. He was. I think this is the one where he came out with his sword and his little shield, and he was like waving it about and showing everybody Toon Link and how great it was. And Miyamoto has often been cited as the guy who likes the childlike aspect of Link, and because it's based on his own childhood experiences. So I think maybe the consensus would be to blame Miyamoto for the way that it looked, but he was apparently the one trying to say. Apparently he said, like, how is that Zelda? And even at the last minute, he said it's not too late to change and make it a realistic one, by the way. Kind of like, it's not too late, boys. What are you doing?
That's interesting. Because he pops up from time to time in the Reggie Fils-Aimé book, which I've just not long finished, and he was always very resistant.
Miyamoto or Aonuma?
Miyamoto, sorry. He would always be extremely resistant, or it seemed to come across, because obviously, like, Reggie Fils-Aimé, like, is the party line personified, but like he would, like, whenever he was talking about it, and like the one sort of, if there was ever a sort of point of friction or tension, a lot of the time it would come from him not wanting to change something. Like Reggie was the one that wanted to pack in that game, what was it, Wii Play or something, with every Wii controller.
Yeah.
Miyamoto did not want to do that. He thought that that game deserved to be a full price game. And there was another
He's
one.
wrong.
Yeah, totally. And there's another one as well. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, like he any sort of time that Nintendo looked to sort of modernize themselves or do something like unusual, he seemed, and I guess it's probably to be expected and understood to an extent, in that like Japan is a culture that's very sort of bricks and mortared on tradition, so
it's a lot. They take a lot of time to make decisions as well, don't they?
Yeah,
maybe stereotypically, but yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was that's interesting that you said that.
Yeah, because apparently as well, like, you know, obviously the probably the most striking thing about the design of Link in this is how massive his eyes are. And obviously they purposely put his eyebrows over his hair, which is a kind of an anime trope for showing off expression and things like that. So apparently Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, who was the other producer on it, actually made the team needed to quote, it's in Iwata Asks, they said that apparently they needed to give a reason why his eyes were so big. So Miyamoto and Tezuka went to the designer and was like, right, he's got massive eyes. You now need to give us a presentation of why the fuck you've done that, please. And apparently
that's how they do cartoons in Japan. I don't know.
Yeah, right. But apparently they even one of the reasons they were actually going to try and sell to Miyamoto was that he was going to shoot laser beams out of his
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny to hear like you discussing that there was such internal division about making the art style like this, because I can't, now it's out there, I cannot imagine this game being even nearly as effective without the art style that it comes with.
I think if anybody thinks of Wind Waker, the first thing they think of is the art style, right? And
yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's timeless, right? It's so well done. It harnessed the technology that it was using, the way that Nintendo always does it, where they tone down realism, they make it cartoony and cel shaded, and it will never age. It will never not look good.
That's the thing, and I guess it's easy for us to say with hindsight now, but now that we're sort of reaching a point where, I don't know, I don't want to say it's not improving, because of course it is, but like graphical improvements are certainly slowing down, because like that was around about the turn of the HD era, wasn't it? Like it was the wrong side of it, but we were approaching that sort of era. Certainly the disc-based stuff, because it was a disc game, but like something we can say in hindsight now when we go back and we think about like even Xbox 360 era games that were shooting for realism, like Battlefield or Killzone on PS3, games like that ilk, they age so poorly. But a game like this, I mean, like Super Mario World's another game we've covered on the Resurrected Winners U podcast. That game is still beautiful 30 odd years after its release, whereas I wouldn't say the early Battlefield games are particularly beautiful now. There are a lot of smudged textures, and I think that is something that Nintendo has come out on the right side of history, and that you don't, I mean, there is certainly a place for realism, don't get me wrong, but if you're wanting your games to sort of live on and you want to be the Disney of the video game industry, which they clearly do want to be, and they've positioned themselves in that way, doing the realistic game is not always the best thing to do. And some of the more striking games that I've played over the last decade aren't realistic games. I mean, Celeste isn't, and that's quite a nice visual game. There's lots of games. I'm not going to go in and start listing games, because of course there are nice ones in between. Inside's another one. I mean, 13, I know the remake was a bit of a disaster, but 13 still looks pretty good, and that's a similar design style to what this game is, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a tangent, so apologies.
Yeah, but you were right. I mean, before we started talking about this, the Zelda thing is what people were calling it. Especially because obviously people had seen this demo that was shown at the launch of the console, showing a super realistic version of what Zelda could be. And apparently Miyamoto was really upset about that. He said to Kotaku, they were startled by the response they got from the press. They all said, "Oh, so is Nintendo now taking Zelda and trying to aim it only at kids?" And he said, really, the whole concept we had behind it was we thought it was very creative and a new way to show off Link. All of a sudden, it had been interpreted as Nintendo's new strategy, and that was a shock for us. And with the eyes as well, they actually, they eventually settled on the point that they were used to be just show off this like extreme new level of expressionism that you'd never really seen, really in anything at that point. Because you can see like they purposely made it so that Link's eyes will go around the room and look at things you can interact with, so that you can kind of take that visual clue, literal visual clue of what you can be using in the room or where you should be going or who you should be focusing on. Because Link will purposely look at them for you. And obviously, when he's doing like he's sidling along the wall, he's like raising his eyebrow and he's gritting his teeth a lot. And as you said, it's a stunning video game.
Yeah,
he does.
Could you imagine, like, if they'd even just... I'm even trying to think of, like, you spend a lot of time looking at the water in this game. If they had tried to make that realistic versus what they've got.
Yeah.
That'd just be such it'd be such a different vibe of a game.
Yeah. The only thing that comes close to, like, a non-realistic version of water that looks amazing, I guess, is Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, yeah. That's the most stunning water I've ever seen in a video game, full stop, I think.
Yeah.
The other one that always jumps to mind when we talk about the two now, because I watched that is MVG YouTube channel. He did the wave race. Wave physics are quite impressive.
Yeah.
But the one that jumped to mind there is Uncharted 1. So the Uncharted 1 on the PS3, there's a bit where you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean and I think it's sinking or something's going on with it anyway, but what you're doing is when you're walking around, if you look out the window or you go on deck or you go out on a balcony or wherever, you can see the ocean moving about and stuff like that. And Naughty Dog spent a lot of time trying to imitate the movement of the waves in the game and have it realistically replicate within the ship. And they eventually decided that it was much easier just to create an entire sort of box that had a realistically, either as close to realistically moving ocean as they could, and then so they actually created a water physics in the game that the boat actually does exist on and moves about as you play the game, and it's not fake, it's not trickery, it's an actual. They've created a sea box and placed a boat in there and created physics on the waves that the boat reacts to. That's the other one that jumps to my mind.
That is very cool,
especially on a PS3.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually got it in my notes here, but there is we'll get to it later about the game being rushed and having things cut. But apparently one of the reasons that they had to cut some stuff is that something like the developers initially thought that you can't sail into the wind, like your boat just won't go anywhere. But apparently if you zigzag your boat, you can kind of go against the wind, even with the sail. And somebody told them, it must be from a Nintendo of America, somebody told them that that sort of thing is taught to kids in American schools.
What?
And they were basically
against the wind.
Yeah. And apparently, like they said, like if you don't put that in the game, people are going to notice it and you're going to get complaints because your whole game is around being on a boat. And if you don't put this basic boating knowledge to the kids of America, they are going to call you on your bullshit. So they had to work on these physics for ages to get it working so you can wiggle the boat in a zigzag and it will go against the wind if you've got your... So just change the fucking wind direction for a start, but whatever.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to guess at apparently the most annoyed people about Toon Link and his cel-shaded ways? What group of people do you think were most annoyed about this? That they apparently sent Nintendo letters en masse demanding it be changed.
What group of people?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think all press and sort of fan-based industries can be a bit over the top, but the video game industry is probably one that is a lot more reactive to things and angry. The group, I can't think of a group. I don't know.
It is Japanese girls.
Oh.
They were apparently incredibly annoyed that their fuckboy adult Link from Ocarina of Time was no longer in the game, and apparently
I can see.
They were busy. They've been fapping over N64 Link for a long time. And when they were showing this little boy,
Yeah, I could
They
see
were not happy.
teenage Link being well. That's one of many. When we start getting into it, like there's a few issues and a few jarring moments I had with this game, but like one thing that like they do sort of sail close to the wind in terms of like not explicitly saying but implying like romances and like crushes that various people have got on Link, and I find doing any kind of romance or like crushes or any sort of sexualization of these characters, I find it quite uncomfortable because he's clearly like a 9-year-old kid, and I noticed it, and I find that quite off-putting. There's like the odd thing that's said and done, and I'm like, and
his grandma would not approve.
There's the odd sort of there's the odd sort of inclination that there's a clearly adult member of the pirate crew that has a bit of a crush on Zelda, and that also made me feel a bit queasy, seasick.
Her age is quite vague. I can't tell what age they're supposed to be saying that she is.
Yeah.
But why does the school teacher always tell Link to not tell anyone? She doesn't tell him what he's not supposed to say, but she always says, doesn't she, at the end, remember, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
All right, Doris.
Oh, it's so dodgy. There's the odd. Sorry, I know. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but yeah, there's lots of bits that I was just, oh, I don't like this. I do not like this.
To be fair, I mean, the Japanese sexualized schoolgirls enough. Maybe it's the time for a 10-year-old boy in his pajamas to get sexualized by them. they had it coming. There was actually apparently plans for him to grow up in this game. They did concept art of him, like 3 stages of him until he becomes a teenager again. Maybe that was while the letters were flooding in saying, you know, where's this hunky teen idol Link gone?
I would have actually found that quite effective in terms of a sort of visualization, because the whole point because you're required to go back to your starting island at various points throughout the game, they do sort of allude to the fact it's like, oh, you've changed so much, and you're meant to, every time you're sort of forced to go back and you interact with the characters, there's like, not overt, but like, in fact, yeah, I'd say overt sort of references to how much you've changed and how you've come back a different person and you seem different, and that would have been a nice sort of visual representation of how you've changed and got older and become more grizzled, because you start as a 9-year-old kid and you finish as a 9-year-old kid, and you're supposed to have been on this like massive saga when it's not actually been that long based on how you look. But yeah, that would have been cool. I would have liked them to do that.
Yeah, there's a statue in Hyrule Castle of adult Link.
I assume that was Ocarina of Time Link.
It is, yeah.
Right,
we'll get into that when I get into the story, but yeah. But I guess maybe that the way that they rendered that statue is like an inclination of what he would have looked like if they went full on.
Yeah.
Grew him up.
Yeah.
Maybe it was cut because for story reasons. Maybe it was cut because it was rushed. The game was basically developed in a year and a half, which for a Zelda game and basically any Nintendo game is mad.
Of that era, that's wild, because that was sort of, I would say Xbox 360 era is when we entered the sort of 5-year time frame for a game. So yeah, I'd say 3 to 5 years is what you'd expect. Excuse me, for a GameCube game.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't it that I can't remember which way around it is? Is it that Ocarina of Time is in the Mario 64 engine, or is it the other way around? It's one of the two. But I mean, that game took ages. They Miyamoto's fucking catchphrase is, you know, a rushed game is forever bad, a delayed game is eventually great, or whatever. But this one, they crunched so hard that Aonuma, the game's director, didn't know the seasons had changed because he was sleeping at the office so much that apparently people started coming in wearing jackets, and he was like, "Why the fuck are you wearing jackets?" And then by the time he got home, he realized how cold it was because it was winter now. Like, he didn't know what the fucking the season was. He crunched so hard, which is mad. But that explains why they cut out stuff like these. Well, they were gonna have a guide in the game, like Navi in Ocarina of Time, or that fucking stupid woman in Skyward Sword.
Do you think they did? So did they begin work on that? Because I feel like that's that necklace that speaks to you.
Yeah.
That feels like an unfinished thought.
It does. It kind of goes away very quickly.
Yeah, and it'll randomly come back and randomly go, and just like you won't see it for hours, and randomly it'll just appear again. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I suppose the boat kind of does some guiding as well. If you speak to him, which was really annoying, right? If you're trying to get in the boat and you accidentally talk to him, and he's like, "What are you doing? Go find the Triforce." I'm trying to, you dick.
One thing I actually want to ask you before I forget, because as we've discovered already in this podcast, I've got a penchant for starting thoughts and totally forgetting where I'm going. That my sort of, not again, I'm going to keep bashing this home, not being a massive Zelda nerd. Like, my assumption was that if you sort of mainlined and didn't mess about in a Zelda game, they'd roughly be about 10 hours. And you say this game was rushed and it had, what, 2 dungeons taken out of it, at least?
Yeah, 2 dungeons, yeah.
This game was not short.
No. And
so is my understanding wrong?
I assume that you didn't even engage in any way with the Nintendo gallery, right? Which I'm pretty sure is a thing.
I saw.
You have to take photos of everything in the game, and they give you a statue.
I think I texted you at the time when we were playing this. Is like, if I don't have to do this, I'm not engaged. I don't like, and it's a bloody theme in video games these days. So I understand I'm likely the minority. I don't want photos. I don't want a camera. I don't want a photo mode. I want to play the effing game. Who actually takes their photos and then uses them in any way? You'll maybe put them on Twitter and get about 6 likes. What else are you going to do with them?
Lest we forget that in the original game you had a thing called the Tingle Tuner, which was bullshit. It was basically a Game Boy Advance add-on thing where you could do it so that like you could give it to your stupid little brother and he would be able to drop items into the game while looking at his Game Boy. They replaced that in the HD version that you and I played with something that the name I have forgotten, but basically that was the Miiverse.
Yeah.
So in this game, taking the photos was actually worthwhile because you could put them on Miiverse, which was fucking great, and I miss it. I miss Miiverse. Because I used to put loads of little... I mean, everybody was putting a selfie of them stood in front of Ganondorf in the final battle, making Link be like, hooray! That was great. But, I mean, yeah, the game, you have to fill this like art gallery with statues by taking photos of everything in the game. Like, every character, every enemy. There's Tingle, who is locked up at the beginning of the game, definitely for some kind of deviance. Because look at him.
He's naughty boy. He loves a bit of cryptocurrency. You can guarantee it.
Oh yeah. He has a brother that is called Knuckle, and he apparently built Tingle Tower. So when you go to Tingle's Island, this tower that he's in, apparently his brother built that, and then Tingle apparently helped put up a sign saying for Tingle only, and his brother got really fucked off. So if you use the Tingle Tuner on Outset Island, apparently you can find his brother, and then him and Tingle have like this massive argument, and his brother's like, "You're a dickhead for stealing my tower that I made for you," and all this kind of shit. But it's so hard to find that apparently that it marks your collection of these photo statues complete even if you don't get his, because his is so hard to get hold of. And then apparently the description of the statue says like he's really annoyed that your collection can be complete without his statue in it or something.
Because he went off to join the Sonic universe, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I fucking hate Tingle. I think he's a piece of shit. I don't know why. He was brought back in this game. Apparently, people loved him in Majora's Mask, and they were like, right, okay, let's bring him back.
Tingle's
They always.
He's
got his own game as well.
He's in the newest Zelda as well, is he not?
Is he?
I'm sure Tingle's in there.
Probably. I think he's been in all of them since then.
I think he's in prison as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like I say, he's definitely doing some kind of perversion.
Was there any enemy that annoyed you in this game? I found the rats.
The fucking hands
pissed me off. The hands, yeah.
What did you say? What pissed you off?
The rats. I found them incredibly annoying. I just try and ignore them, and then they'd come and like smash all my rupees out my pocket.
Yeah, no, the hands were the ones that got me, because there was one room somewhere that I gave up on in the end. I think it's in the Earth Temple, where there's a room and there's like, I don't know, 6 or 8 of those hands dotted around. And once you get the compass, it shows that there's a treasure chest in there.
I didn't know until about 2/3 of the way through the game that you could attack those things. I was just trying to stay out their way.
I mean, you can shoot them with arrows, but you need like 6. And I think I just lost patience with it, and I was just trying to go up and hit them
Yeah,
because
you can do that. Yeah.
you can do a counter attack to get them. When they grab for you, you can press the A button counter attack thing, and that'll do a quick kill. But because there were so many in that room, and every time one grabs you and pulls you in, you start like a few yards away or whatever, a few rooms away. I'd done it so many times that I was just losing all pay. You know how when you're just trying to rush through something, you're never going to do it right.
Yeah.
So that the room had a treasure chest that I couldn't see, and I thought to myself, I'm definitely going to have to kill all of these, and then the treasure chest is going to appear. But in the end, I just gave up because I was like, I keep fucking it up, and they keep throwing me back to the beginning of the bloody dungeon over and over again. So yeah, I distinctly remember grinding my teeth to dust at how annoyed I was with those fucking hands.
You're gonna have to come back to this when your daughter gets a little bit older, but when your daughter gets to about Link's age in this game, I want you to internalize the way your daughter runs, load up this game, and then watch Link run, because Annie's got a young nephew who runs exactly, in my brain, runs exactly like Link does in this game. They've got like the little kid running physics absolutely nailed.
I wonder if they did mocap for that and they got some little kid to leg it around.
Yeah.
They must have done.
Yeah, maybe.
I know that in the intro music there's some mandolin or something, and that's apparently a sample of Miyamoto playing
Cool.
Playing a mandolin, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, I don't know if I finished it earlier, but when they cut that guide, the guide was supposed to be a frog on a cloud, so they used that for the 2 little wind god dudes.
Yes.
Apparently in the Japanese version as well, they have names of actual like Shinto gods. One is called Zephos, and one is they're called Raijin and Fujin. Raijin is the god of thunder, which I'm assuming is also where Raichu comes from.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then Fujin is the god of wind. So they actually have those names in the Japanese version.
So do you think something to do with Pikachu is lightning then? So you can have thunder and lightning? Maybe,
yeah. Maybe it's the onomatopoeia for thunder in Japanese, like pika. I don't know. So the sales of the game are not great.
As in the sales figures, not the sales canvas.
No, yeah. The fast sale is great, but the sale, yes, the physical video game sales of Wind Waker are not very good. It puts it quite far down in the pantheon of Zelda titles. It's miles down. The top seller is obviously Breath of the Wild. You've then got things like Ocarina of Time, which was so Breath of the Wild has apparently sold 28.25 million. If you include the Wii U versions as well.
So they've recouped their money decades apart, probably then.
Yeah. Ocarina of Time did about nearly 14 million. Link's Awakening did nearly 12 million. Twilight Princess 10 million. Again, that's over multiple versions.
Yeah.
Wii, GameCube, it's also been re-released. They did an HD re-release on the Wii U of Twilight Princess as well. Even stuff like Spirit Tracks.
They did. I forgot they did that.
Yeah, I've got that. That's yeah. If we ever do another Zelda, that might be an idea. If you can find it on Vinted for £3.50 off some unsuspecting mug.
Mid negotiation on Vinted for the lore book for Zelda.
Nice.
I've £23 in my Vinted account, and
yeah,
someone wants 20 quid for it, which I think is an alright price.
Yeah.
But the postage is like £4, so I'm like, I've got £23 in my Vinted account. Will you take it? So I'm waiting for them to reply.
The RRP in dollars is like $35, so that's a damn good price. I think even stuff like Skyward Sword, the original Legend of Zelda, they're all sold more than Wind Waker.
I always assumed the sort of black sheep of the Zelda mainline. I'm going to ignore the handhelds because I know less than nothing about them. But my assumption was always the Wii one. What's that called again? The one where you turn into a wolf?
Twilight Princess.
Twilight Princess. I always assumed that was a sort of black sheep, but people seem to like that one retrospectively as well.
Well, yeah, and obviously that was the reason it exists is because the sales of this were
So they
so
went
low.
dark and gritty realism.
They were like, right, fine, fuck it. Clearly, people love. Clearly this is critically acclaimed because it got. It was the fourth game at the time to get a perfect score from that Famitsu magazine.
People don't know
It's got 96 on Metacritic. It got perfect scores from Computer Video Games, Game Informer, GamePro, Nintendo Power. They all gave it a 10 out of 10. But people they just didn't buy it. I mean, the GameCube didn't do that great. So if you're talking about Twilight Princess, that was on the Wii, which sold over 100 million units, and it was a launch game for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously did good numbers through that. But partly they did have an idea to make a Wind Waker 2. You were going to be back on land this time. You were going to be riding a horse around and stuff. But partly they thought that Link was too small in the Toon Little Boy Link version to ride a horse in any way that looked realistic.
Yeah, fair. Okay.
And then, of course, they were like, well, the sales are also shit, so we might as well just give people what they apparently want, because people are still talking about wanting a realistic one.
How often do they do
Twilight Princess
direct sequels to Zelda games? They did Zelda, then Zelda 2. I guess, I don't know if that really counts.
They're so different from each other as well, those two.
Majora's
Majora's Mask is the only one to have used the same engine, or at least the same assets, in terms of how it looks. Obviously, they did the DS sequels to this in a way that do actually directly carry on.
Oh,
so
interesting.
the end of this game, you see obviously that Zelda and Link go off on their boats to be like, let's go find a new Hyrule because it's under the water. So in Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit Tracks is them searching for it.
Oh,
and in Spirit Tracks is where they actually do find a new kingdom of Hyrule, and they set up the new kingdom at the end of that.
Oh, that makes me want to play them. So I'm going to have
to... No, don't. Don't.
Okay, I was going to say, so I need to get my vintage shoes on again for a 3DS.
But yeah, so they never obviously did the full-on sequel. Those are the two, most sequel-like games as those two
because
DS ones.
Is Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, how are they related?
So this comes down to where they have this like splitting of the lore.
And why
initially
did they explain why they split the lore? Like does like Ganon fart on the timeline or something and create a rift or something like what?
Yeah, it's something like so basically. I guess we can move into that.
And I'm just going to start firing questions at you then. So is the Ganon you fight in each Zelda game the same Ganon?
Basically,
for the most part.
Yes,
because you get like Calamity Ganon, don't you? And is he a different thing?
Calamity I don't believe so.
Breath of the Wild. I wonder why he looks like he just looks Irish to me. Ganon. It's because he's ginger.
I actually really like this visual depiction of Ganon or Ganondorf. Ganondorf is like the human form of Ganon. Like there's like Demon Ganon and whatever. Demon King Ganon. Papa Ganon, yeah. Little Jimmy Ganon. They're all there. So basically, at the end of Ocarina of Time, you seal Ganon away. So Link's obviously jumped forward like 7 years in time in Ocarina of Time because he goes to the Temple of Time. He puts his little fucking trinkets in a row, grabs the Master Sword out, but apparently he's too young to use the Master Sword. So like, he gets sealed in this sacred realm.
Oh, is that what happens? I knew you got older, but I don't think I ever, as a kid, clicked why I was older. I tell you what, that having taken the character that you play in a game, and then removing them from the world and then plopping them back in after a lot of time has passed is a really fucking effective way to make you feel like bad shit has happened in a game. Another game that I remember that I'll always remember doing it is Fable 3, I think it is. So
okay.
You go into like a tower and you come out and like decades have passed and the world has just changed. Like bad things have happened. Like your family think you've died and they're like, or they've got old and died having thought you've died. That is a good way to like stab you
It's
in the
not really
emotional
done that
gut.
often either, is it?
No, but it's really fucking effective for me anyway.
Yeah, they actually kind of thought they wanted something not exactly like that in Wind Waker, but they apparently did want to do it so that you could kind of switch between timelines of like
I find that
old Hyrule under the water and also above the surface.
I find that super
well.
interesting because, like, again, repeating myself, but like not being a huge Zelda nut, one of the standout memories I've got of playing Zelda games is I can remember, even though I did it happened probably like 27 years ago. I can still remember getting older and walking around like the decimated Hyrule thinking, oh my god,
Yeah,
what's happened?
yeah.
Like, that is so
And zombies
effective.
and shit.
Yeah. It is
Yeah.
so effective. So good. Anyway, sorry,
yeah.
I derailed that because that just popped into my head.
It's just nice to hear you talk about loving things to do with Zelda, to be honest.
It's just never happened in the 12
yeah,
years we've been
exactly.
podcasting.
Exactly. So I'm fucking drinking it in. Because of so because he gets sealed away, obviously then Ganondorf like sneaks in and fucks everything up. Once you've defeated Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time and then sealed him away again, they always seem to seal him away. If they fucking killed this guy,
kill him.
They do actually kill him in Twilight Princess. They proper like fucking public execution of him in Twilight Princess. But at the end of the game, Princess Zelda then says to Link, like, you know, we've done all the hero stuff now. I took 7 years of your life away. I'm going to play the ocarina, and I'm going to send you back to how you were 7 years ago, and you can then live your life properly. Then it splits two ways, apparently. So
yeah, okay, I'll let you finish and then I'll ask.
So then Link then wakes back up again. 7 years back in the past again.
Does he know he's back in the past? Does he have any memory of all
this? He does. Yeah, he does. So he does one of two things at that point.
Imagine that. Imagine they took like an 18-year-old Alex and then slapped you back in like a 10-year-old body. And then you're going to school every day, having to speak to your mates that have got like rotten chat.
But does he actually? I wonder how much he actually matured, because he didn't really. He only matured physically.
I'd be off in the woods and just live on my own, just like a 10-year-old me, camping.
Just wait for everybody to catch up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, it depends. I mean, he probably has aged quite a lot mentally as well. Like by the end, because he's obviously seen some real shit. But you know, maybe he still likes Pokemon cards because he still is only like 10-year-old boy. He's physically 17, but it's like big, isn't it? It's like that Tom Hanks film.
Yeah.
Which also has some very questionable romantic involvement where he has full sex with a woman, but he's only really 10 or whatever.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah, okay, so you're right. Yeah, so I'm actually looking at this the wrong way. So like 17-year-old Link is like a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old's body, because he didn't do anything for all that time. So he's coming out like
asleep.
Full 10-year-old brain.
Yeah, he wakes up and he's like, you know, are they still gunging people on fucking Funhouse? Everyone's like, what are you on about, you dickhead? Pat Sharp's matured. He's cut his mullet off. And he's like, he cut his mullet off. So, yeah, when Link goes back in time, he does one of two things. The first thing that he does, not the first thing. One of the things he can do, which leads to one timeline, is he goes straight back to Princess Zelda at the castle. So when you first meet Zelda in Ocarina of Time, she's looking at the castle and she's like, Ganondorf's a cunt, and my dad's like having dinner with him, and my dad doesn't know how much of a piece of shit this guy is and how much of the world he's going to ruin. So when Link then goes back in time, he goes straight to Princess Zelda at the castle again, and she's like, all right, I know exactly what's happened. So now we've done it in the future. You need to get the fuck away from here, because he'll only come back for you again. Just run away, go off, take your little Triforce of courage with you, bugger off, just go live your life somewhere else. Then he buggers off and thinks that he doesn't know where the fairy Navi is anymore, so he goes looking for Navi, winds up in a forest.
Do not go looking for Navi. Leave Navi.
I mean, yeah, surely. We all know that guy sucks.
I'm listening!
He's going back like, hey, I want to listen. Where are you? So he finds Navi, and that's the whole event of Majora's Mask, and it goes on that way. So that's how Majora's Mask happens. Is Link goes away from Hyrule and then ends up in this other place. The other version is that basically Link just gets his horse and just goes off and goes back to his little farm, just hangs out with his horse and's like, yeah, chilling now.
Oh, okay. This wasn't going. I thought the direction you were going to go here was one version of Link goes back in time, the other version of Link stays older, and then it splits off from there.
Well, they do call it the child and the adult era, but that doesn't actually make sense because you're right. I kept reading through this Hyrule Historia, being like, where's the bit where he doesn't go back as a kid? But no, apparently both times he goes back as a kid in both the parallel universes, but one of them he basically does Majora's Mask and the other one he does nothing. And then you see the start of this game where, in the opening kind of not cutscene but whatever, they then tell the story that Ganon gets resurrected, because of course he does. And the hero is nowhere to be found because Link can't be fucked anymore. He's the hero of time, but Link doesn't come and help them, and Ganon sort of starts taking over.
Not doing it.
And yet, what's weird is that at the beginning of this game, you get given the Link's clothes because everyone still dresses up. The kids on Outset Island, when you turn 10, you've got to dress up like the hero of time, even though he didn't come and help you the second time around because he couldn't be fucked.
Yeah.
And then because he couldn't be fucked,
so this is the Duke can't be fucked timeline. So
yeah, exactly.
He's actually a bit of a dick.
Yeah. And because he couldn't be fucked and he wouldn't help anybody out, King... He's got some absolutely ridiculous name, hasn't he? But the King of Hyrule, anyway, who's the boat, he then
wait. So the boat and the guy you meet underwater is the same person?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That didn't click with me.
Okay.
That went over my head.
So at this point, Ganon has...
but at the end, that totally undermines the end of the game when you're like have this moment where he's trying to rescue the king under the water and the king's like, no, this is not my Hyrule, I'm going to die underwater. And then at the end of the game, after everybody's done waving at each other for about 20 minutes, you set off on the boat next to the pirate boat.
Does the boat move like it's still got a soul in it?
Maybe it's gone back to wooden boat. I don't know,
but maybe you're right, because that is the explanation for that is very like loose. It's very like, so basically Ganondorf comes back, he kills those two sages, the ones who are playing the instruments, the ghost instrument kids.
Yes,
kills both of them, and then starts like trying to take the Triforce back. So the King of Hyrule's like, right, fuck this. The hero of time's not coming. We're in the shit here. He prays to the gods and says, right, you just do whatever. The fate is in your hands. And they flood Hyrule. They just seal Ganon away by flooding the shit out of it. Hence now why you go all further in time. We are now on the... Oh, also the gods say, apparently, to all the most important people, we're going to flood the fuck out of this. Kind of like Moses, but, more of them. They basically say, go stand on a mountaintop. We're going to flood everything and just stand up there and you'll be all right. Zelda is one of those people. But yeah, so basically all the islands are obviously mountains from Hyrule. They're the top of them, apparently. So then obviously Ganon comes back out of the water. And at this point now we get the King of Hyrule who flooded Hyrule to save it. His spirit awakens and possesses a boat, which then seeks out Link and Zelda. Obviously, Ganondorf is also looking for Zelda when he comes out of the water, which is why he steals your sister, because he's he's basically kidnapping any girl with pointy ears, apparently, trying to find Zelda so he can then start getting her Triforce. Is
that what he's doing? He's just sort of rounding them all up, thinking, I'll get her eventually. Yeah,
process of elimination. He like controls that bird and gets it to go kidnapping all the little kids.
So obviously at the start, the little postman bird thing says to Zelda, the only reason that his sister's been kidnapped is because of you. I mean, that's literally true, but he doesn't know that that's true because he doesn't know that she's Zelda. So is that right? Would the bird come back for her anyway? Probably.
I guess so. It may find her unless she's really good at hiding.
He was maybe
on a pirate ship.
It was maybe looking for the pirate Zelda, but then thought, oh, there's another pointy-eared one. I'll just take her and we can look for the pirate Zelda later.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, that is true, because Was it chasing their boat? Is that why it comes in?
That's why it arrives, because the pirate ship arrives.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're firing cannons at it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it was after. It wasn't. He didn't know that she was Zelda, and neither did the postman. But yeah, you're right. It was just after her as the girl.
Little addendum, by the way. Absolutely fucking loved that mini game where you get to put the post in the holes. I don't know why.
Did you go back and do it again later on and get the piece of heart for it? Because you can do it again. There's like a temp guy, and you like blow his mind.
Yes, yeah, I did that. Yeah,
because
the temp guy wanted me to post a letter, and it honestly took me until near the end of the game to figure out how to post the letter.
Oh, it's just one of them like press the button and he kind of stands there and it like floats in front of his hand, and then the post box eats it. The sentient post boxes that talk to you. Speaking of the post boxes, there's Zora that have been evolved into birds.
The Zora are the water ones, right?
Yeah, which is weird because the whole world's water, so wouldn't the Zoras thrive as water people? But apparently not. They evolved into bird people.
Oh, that's weird.
The Rito are apparently evolved Zora in
Are
bird
there not
form.
Rito and Zora in Breath of the Wild?
Yes. That's where everything starts to come apart again, and you start to think, maybe they're just making this shit up as they go along.
Right, okay. I'm strapped in. I'm still strapped in for this lore.
So effectively, what's funniest about the whole thing is that this is like kids Zelda, but the game is a post-apocalyptic hellscape of flooded kingdoms.
If we're talking about Kid Zelda as well, like, because you're totally right, we have got to talk about the mad, like, the out of left field brutality of the final boss, where Ganon
Jesus Christ
beats the shit out of Link, and then Link stabs him through the top of the head with a sword. That is like unlike the rest of the game.
I still cannot. Every time I see that, I still cannot believe how violent that is.
Yeah,
because he did it. I was like, oh final kills like that in a lot of games.
I was like,
I don't think Dark Souls pulls that shit, does it? No. I don't remember full on hanging off a sword sticking out of somebody's fucking bonce. I don't think I can remember that ever. But I mean, we can go through the story, but there's no point really. We've done most of it there. The boat finds Link and Zelda, tells them what they really are. Off you go to get your little pearls, go to the Tower of the Gods to make sure that the Master Sword can be powered up to slay Ganondorf. I do love the fact that when you first meet Ganondorf, the sword doesn't work and he just fucking bats the shit away, like bats him away. Bitch slaps him across the room. And the bird like chucks you away the first time as well, out of his window. And then they try and burn the shit out of Ganondorf's house and he survives it. That bit's pretty brutal as well, isn't it? Yeah. When you're just like sailing away and his house is on fire. Like, see you later, dick.
See you, mate.
I definitely think it's one of the better stories in Zelda games because most of the time they are not that involved. But this, like Breath of the Wild story, I think is weak as fuck.
Oh, it's all exploration, and that's what that game sort of lives and dies on.
And then all the stories in the past, everything's just like, oh, this happened, by the way.
Yeah, and
here's a flashback. It's all flashbacks. It's no actual story.
So it is, yeah. A lot.
The only thing this misses is voice acting, but apparently this was still when they didn't want to do that. I think reading the text is a little bit jarring, but it's one of the better stories for sure.
It is,
and the setting helps.
And it's tied together in a way, because I text you about this, it's tied together in a way that actually had me questioning, is the lore of Zelda really, really good? and actually
you did say that,
intricately tied together, because everything that happens in this game feels well planned and thought out. Like when I realised that I was down in the old Hyrule, I was like, oh my god, this is the same world as the N64 version, which had an impact for me, because that's one of the few Zeldas that I've got any experience of. Maybe if it was like a different one, it wouldn't have had quite the same effect. But I was just like, oh, this is cool. This is actually tying itself together in a way, and it feels deliberate in a way that I assumed that Zelda was not. And I still probably think it is not deliberate, but this is one of the ways that they certainly did think about how they were going to do that. And I guess it's close enough probably to Ocarina of Time that it's not so wild.
I think this is the first one that I can genuinely recall them starting to talk about the fact that it's all like ancestral stuff. So Tetra is obviously an ancestor of the Princess Zelda from when it was from Ocarina of Time. She's her ancestor.
Yeah.
You are just maybe an ancestor of the Hero of Time Link. I'm not entirely sure about that, but this is where they started to play with the fact that it's a different Link every time. It's just hundreds of years later, and then you take on the mantle of the Hero of Time. That seems like they tried to maybe start thinking more about the overarching lore at this point.
So
rather than
I assume all the Zeldas are different as well. Is it like all the princesses called Zelda? Like every time this king has a daughter, it's called Zelda.
Yeah, and why would you keep calling your kid Link as well unless you're really expecting great things of him? I suppose. At least the princess is a princess, so she's already born to nobility. You might as well name her Zelda. That's kind of what we do.
I always assumed,
but Link's just a kid.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. And probably obviously wrongly, but now that I've sort of delved into the world of these games a bit more, because the game always lets you name yourself. So I assumed they just called it Link because he was like the link to the other games.
That is the original reason. Yeah,
right,
apparently it's supposed to be the link between you and the game, the player and the game.
Right.
He is the link, apparently.
Okay. Yeah,
but it does work as well in terms of they're all linked together, I guess.
Yeah. So I assumed they were all ancestors somehow.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about Link, but he must be because he's got the Triforce of Courage in his hand. So I suppose he must be an ancestor somehow.
It also fits with like what I see of Japanese games with like Fire Emblem and this one as well, where they put a lot of score under like royal figures and how important they are and stuff like that, and it would make sense to me that they had this sort of family thread where this family was always coming to the rescue of Hyrule. That makes sense.
It is weird, isn't it, for a republic like Japan?
Mm-hmm.
They really are loving the kingdom part of this.
Yeah,
it's weird that you mentioned Fire Emblem because that also has like Fire Emblem. Is it Awakening on the 3DS where you basically there's like a time rift, so you basically pick the person you want to bang in the game, marry them, have a kid, and then like the kid comes back from the future as an adult to join your army. So if you need more soldiers, you just make kids and they come back in time and help you out. It's fucking mad.
Oh my goodness.
It's really cool mechanic though, because you can you can get some proper
talking like if we're talking about Zelda and like important franchises in the gaming industry that I know nothing about. Fire Emblem's another one. The only Fire Emblem game I have ever played is the mobile game.
Oh Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's awful.
Which is mad considering how much I like XCOM type games.
Yeah. It's what's also weird is that that game is like still full on going. It's one of the few Nintendo mobile games that they're actually still bothered about. Remember when they had that mobile game roadmap?
Yeah.
They ditched off.
It was the only one that was even half fun as well.
Yeah, I mean Super Mario Run still exists, I guess.
It was all right. It was like a play where you have a poo game and it's quite fun.
Yeah, they had like Miitopia, which is gone apparently. That was like a Sims rip-off with Mii's.
Oh yeah.
They had an Animal Crossing one. They've binned that off as well.
Mario Kart, is that still going?
Yeah, that one's still going. There's a Dr. Mario online thing. They've binned that off as well. And then they've just not done anything for like years and years and years. They seem to have completely dropped out of that because they've got a handheld console again, I suppose.
Yeah, the Switch.
That was more of a Wii U thing, and they started doing mobile games because they were panicking.
Yeah, full on panic mode.
That's all I kind of had in terms of lore, story, development. It's now just we're going to talk about opinions, and I guess we'll go through. We'll have a little chat about the bosses and the dungeons and stuff. I might go get another beer though.
Yes, I think I was about to say that's why I was quickly having a little scribble there of bits that I wanted to cover during our next discussion because this is an obvious break point. So
yes,
we'll come on the other side, folks.
Yeah.
Goodbye. I'll leave it recording and stuff like that, and then you can cut.
Yeah, definitely do that. Yeah.
All right, catch you in 2. Oh, will I go get another beer? Yeah, I might do this. I might do that.
That one's got a kick.
Went for a lemonade instead, so I'm going to have another whiskey.
I have got the free beer that I got from Brewdog. This is what they sent me as an extra.
Urban Fog. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, this is apparently the Brewdog and Friends thing with some guy called, or some brewery called Mikkeller, based in Copenhagen. It's apparently got a big pineapple hit with subtle notes of sharp citrus and pine resin. It definitely does have more of a kick to it than the other one.
When I do eventually get down to see you, I'm gonna. You might be able to do it in your ones, but the Ellen Brewdog, because it's obviously where Brewdog is from. It's got a bit where you can sort of can your own beers. I'll go and get you some. I'll go and pick up type and bring you some.
Yes.
Basically, you get to pour and can them yourself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And Annie's
I'd like to go do
Annie's dad is a shareholder, so he gets money off every time he buys stuff at Brewdog.
Yeah, I became a club member or whatever, which is free to sign up to, and then they just give you money off for some reason.
Yeah, if we go to Brewdog for a meal and stuff like that, he gets like 10% off, and if we buy stuff in the shop, he gets 10% or something off. Anyway,
Decent.
It's good if you use it. Like, I'm not a big beer drinker, but it costs like, if you want to be a quote unquote shareholder, it's like over £200.
Oh, what? How often?
That's just once, and that's it.
Okay, yes.
So you have to be into your beer. So like I said, I drank a beer tonight that I've had since May. So like I'm not a I'm not a massive beer drinker, so I wouldn't get my money's worth out of it.
Fair.
But I'm trying to drink a bit more of I'm not consciously trying to drink more, but like drink more beer or wine, because I like whiskey, but it just ends up getting me absolutely fucked. And I just like fancy having just a quick drink. Like a nice like beer, like on an evening is no big deal. But like if I have a whiskey, I end up like waking up thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Just feeling really ill. And it's just because I should just knock spirits in the head and just.
Are you drinking particularly brutal whiskies? Why? I thought you'd be well good at handling it now.
I can handle it, but that's the problem, is that I can handle it. So I can drink a lot of whiskey and be relatively okay. And then you wake up in the morning and like I don't feel ill or anything, but I know I've had too much to drink. And that's not a good habit to get into, especially especially when I'm conscious that I probably drink too much anyway, and I work at home. So like, if I'm hungover and I go to work in the morning, doesn't matter because I'm not driving or anything like that. So
Yeah.
and nobody's checking up on me. So yeah, it's probably in an effort to have because I like drinking. I'm not, like I say to Annie all the time, I like drinking and I quite like getting drunk. I'm not saying I don't want to do either of those, but I'd like to have probably a more healthy relationship with alcohol.
Mm.
It's all sort of stemmed. I went to my cousin, my cousin that's the rugby player. I went to his wedding this year, and I was absolutely fucking legless, and I missed most of the night because I was just absolutely out of it. So
I think I remember you telling me about
it's
that.
just, I don't want to be like that. I would rather not get like that again. But I like drinking and I like being drunk. I just don't want to be.
Yeah, it's the hangovers that fuck me over. I just can't.
I think that's also the
I
thing.
can't waste the next day of my life. I just don't want to do that. I think that's
also
anymore.
the thing. Is a lot of my mates now I've got kids, and that seems to be a sort of regulator on your alcohol intake. Whereas, I don't have any kids like that, so like I don't need to worry about anything like that. So I've never sort of developed that natural stop point. But
you got no responsibilities. Don't even have to drive to work. Yeah, I can. Yeah, that makes sense. How you could go totally unchecked and just do whatever you want every night.
Exactly. So, yeah. I think once I've finished, that'll be me finished this bottle now tonight. So after that, I probably won't buy myself. I'll try not to buy myself a bottle of whiskey for a good few months, and I'll just stick to it. And also,
you'll get loads for Christmas, mate. I'm sorry to tell you this.
The calories in beer and wine will probably scare me off as well. So
I was going to say this is why I'm a fat cunt, because I've started to drink beers.
So yeah, that might actually help me anyway. So it'll stop me.
Yeah, I'm not going to look at the calories in this.
You don't. If you're drinking a beer or having a glass of wine, you're not worried about the calories. You're having a nice time. Plus, it's Christmas. That's not for worrying about your stomach. It's for having a good time.
Yeah. Damn right, it's for afterwards, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've had a break. 7 years have passed, and we've come back.
Zelda's not going to be sending us back afterwards, though, unfortunately.
I've just spent the last 45 minutes walking around my estate. It's like an abandoned hellscape. Everything's on fire. There's a wizard in control. All my family are dead. But we've come back to podcast.
Yeah, Ganondorf knew you were going to podcast tonight, so he was basically spying on you. And as soon as you opened up OBS, that was it. Done. That was how he could get in and steal your Triforce. And yeah, there we go.
So we're back to finish the podcast as men in a child's body. No, child in a man's body. That's the right way around.
Why we're podcasting about Wind Waker, because we are that anyway.
We were that anyway.
It went wrong. He didn't realise we already were that.
Actually, when we started podcasting tonight, it was, I don't know, balmy weather, 30 degrees. Now I look out my window and it's minus 15 or something, or whatever it is outside.
Christ.
Braymar's really close to me, by the way, which is the place that always gets the lowest recorded temperature in the UK. But it's because it's high. So I go when I go camping. It's usually over by Braemar, and there's a place called Glen that I like to go to, and it's spelled Glen EY, I think it's called. So yeah, I think it's Glen E, but it being Scottish, it could be something completely different. But so it's Glen E, and there's a bit where we camp, and it's in a sort of valley of two hills, but it feels like you're on sort of ground. Well, you obviously are ground level because I'm not flying, but it feels flat. So the walk is fairly flat. There's a bit of a hill at the start, but for the most part, it's a flat walk. But me and my friend Joe were looking it up, and this apparently flat area of ground, so like where Braemar is the height of is the height of Benihee, which is like the tallest hill / mountain in the sort of northeast area. So it's you're actually super high up, which is why it's always snowing, why it's always cold, why it's always freezing, why it's always windy, even no matter the time of year. But I think Braemar got down to minus 15 over the last couple of days. So,
you obviously don't go camping in the winter, though, right?
Not yet. I am actually working up to that because, as you know, I also like to play golf. So golf takes up a lot of my summer because winter golf with my post-chemo hands is not going to be happening. So when it's really, really cold, my extremities, like my fingers, my toes, really don't like it. So so when it gets to winter, it's actually quite hard to play golf for me. It's quite painful. So as to try and keep up sport, because obviously go to the gym and go running still and stuff like that, but it's like obviously golf is a lot of walking, so to try and replace that, I do like hill walking and camping and stuff. So ideally,
all right.
ideally in a sort of all things being equal world, it would be nice to be able to play golf through the summer and then start hiking and camping in the winter. So I'm sort of saving up, but the problem is when you want to do that in Scotland, I don't know.
I was going to say,
it's a bit of a different effort. So I've got all my summer camping gear, and I think my sleeping bag will go down to 0 degrees. My tent is like a 3-season tent, so it should do most weathers. But 0 degrees isn't enough in the winter in Scotland. So as I say, when I go camping, it gets down to -15. So you go from being like a sleeping bag. My sleeping bag cost me like 50, 60 quid maybe. The sleeping bag that I've got my eye on that goes down to -18, which is really what I need, is about 300 quid. So I do want to do camping in the winter, but at the moment it's just not feasible. Because like if I'm moving about in the winter and stuff, I'm absolutely fine. My fingers and toes.
Yeah, like a hiking, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm mostly fine. Yeah, my dog that's a wee bit older, he's 9, or is he 10? No, he's 9. He's struggling in the cold a wee bit, so before we started doing this podcast, I was out clearing the snow around the garden, so he could sort of move about the paths and stuff without having snow, because he's really struggling with his arthritis. So just having a bit of an area where he's not having to trample in snow if he needs to go out into the toilet or something like that. So I went out and cleared it, and my fingers and toes are absolutely fine. So if I'm moving about, it's okay. But like golf, because you can't wear gloves and stuff when you're playing golf.
Or just the one.
Yeah, it's not really doable in the winter for me. But yeah, so hiking would be fine, and camping would be fine as long as I've got the proper gear. But I just need to make sure I've got the proper gear, much like Link has to do. Otherwise, he wouldn't be getting anywhere if he wasn't sailing about the seas. And that red sail is a must-have, because I said this to you before, like, as much as it is it feels silly to say this, because I think one of the main complaints, and probably one of the valid complaints, but certainly the GameCube version of this game, is that there's a lot of sailing about, and you spend too much time sailing and not doing anything.
There's a reason for that.
I found something quite comforting and quite enjoyable about just sort of existing, and because again, like, it's heightened by the sense that this game is obviously, like we touched on before, creating a sense of adventure and wonder and exploration. And I said to you also, where were we chatting, that I said this game almost feels like the early sort of seedling ideas of Breath of the Wild, in that there's like mini dungeons, they're creating a game that they're just wanting you to explore and just be in and exist. I quite enjoyed just sort of checking off and going and looking for the fish. There was a couple of nights that I spent just looking for the fish, and when you get that red sail, it makes moving around the world that much more enjoyable. Because we'll get to it, but the Wind Waker actually became a bit of an annoyance for me more than anything else, I think, eventually, by the end of the game.
The swift sail, meaning that you don't have to do that, change the wind direction all the time, is an absolute godsend. The reason actually that the world is so vast, and there's so much sort of time and distance between each each island, is basically because the sea at times in the game is a glorified loading screen. So they basically had to make this. Well, first of all, they had to make the sea not huge. Like, they couldn't put the whole of the world in the game. They couldn't load it all at once. The capabilities of the hardware weren't enough. On the Wii U, they were enough. So
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure, because The Witcher doesn't have a loading screen, does it? After you load into The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think Grand Theft Auto 5 does either.
No, I think, and maybe Last of Us 2. I mean, Last of Us as well. Probably Last of Us 2 too, but yeah.
They must, in our next game as well, just to sort of list and round it off, our next game, God of War, does that one scene. It never cuts, and you never get a cut in the
Does it do that again in the second one?
It does it again, yeah. Because I've seen, and
Yeah.
interesting to see what we think about it because we're obviously the experts. People say it holds back.
We're the ones everyone wants to know the opinion of.
Exactly, it holds back the narrative a little bit, and there are jumps and changes in, like, sometimes you'll meet someone that really doesn't like you, and by the time you meet them again, they've gone on a bit of a journey and they've decided they do actually like you, but you don't see any of that. Because the game sort of rigidly sticks to this over the shoulder. We're not going to do it. We're going to do that. Whatever that horror movie is really shit.
What, Blair Witch?
No, there's a horror movie. It's got one of the Olsens in it?
Cloverfield.
No, it's like it's a one take movie. It's a horror movie. It's like a 90-minute one take movie, and it just follows this girl going into an abandoned house and getting chased by someone, and it never breaks and never. I'll look it up.
I thought Cloverfield was kind of like that because it was all on video.
Cloverfield is a found footage movie, right?
Yeah, you're right. There's a zombie movie I've got from Japan called One Cut of the Dead. That probably does the same sort of thing, I guess. It's in the name.
I do love an extended cut. So that bit in Kill Bill.
Yeah, I love a tracking shot.
Yeah, that Kill Bill tracking shot.
Oh, that's amazing.
My favorite one.
Yeah. So on the GameCube, the sort of area was limited from the hardware. They also made the sailing slow because it had to load in or process the data for the next island you were going to as you were on your way to going to it. Whereas on the Wii U version, they could make the whole sea there together. Apparently, if you sailed that fast in the GameCube version, it couldn't load the assets quickly enough, and the game kept freezing.
Does that faster sail not exist in the GameCube version?
No.
Oh my! So that's how I just thought they made the world smaller a little bit.
No, it couldn't handle it. Apparently, the game kept freezing, so they actually had to slow the sailing down even in the original because it was too fast originally. Then they slowed it even more because it would just freeze the game.
I encountered a lot of stutter in this game. Did you?
Yeah, even on the Wii U version, I was disappointed to see a lot of like huge frame drops fighting the octopus.
Yeah,
those little twats who keep coming down and going, the little devil guys would tank the frame rate. Bats as well. It was struggling. It was a struggle. I was disappointed to see that. But yeah, so on the Wii U, they stuck the whole sea in there all at once and sped it up because they could handle all the loading and all that kind of stuff. But interesting to see that basically they did most of the loading while you're just on the open sea looking at nothing. And then by the time you get to the island, it's loaded that asset in and you're ready to go.
Do you know they use a proprietary disc on the Wii U as well? So a proprietary.
You think you said that a few pods ago? Yeah.
Have you? If you're listening, hopefully, if you're hearing this, you probably are listening or watching. So Alex, if you grab a Wii U game, if you have one to hand, the way to find it out, I will show you. So what you do is you take the disc out and then you hold the edges. So like if you hold the edge of a normal disc, it's quite square and quite jagged. There's no hard edges on a Wii U disc.
I've definitely noticed that it's got a really smoothed out.
They must use their own proprietary disc, which is.
But it's not a proprietary format this time, is it? It is a DVD. It is a DVD.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's some sort of fucking piracy thing. It always is with Nintendo, isn't it?
Yeah, it always has been. It always will be. Or in this case, with the Switch, it's an anti-kids licking the cartridge policy.
Which Jeff Gerstmann managed to get himself on TV and radio because he was the sort of man that pioneered people noticing that you shouldn't be licking this little cartridge.
And then he licked it on the TV.
You know, it was on a podcast. He put one in his mouth, and it was disgusting. And then the TV the TV picked it up off the Giant Bomb podcasts.
Do you reckon that they still do that? Do you reckon that they've had to maintain that it's disgusting for little kids, or do you reckon they just kind of were like, yeah.
I've licked cartridges.
Let's cut some costs on the disgusting.
I think they have. I've licked carts and they've been fine. I wonder if it's just the Nintendo ones that are disgusting.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Didn't think about that.
Oh, Nintendo taking down kids.
Before we go on to the whole of the game, we will, as we were already talking about it, we might as well continue talking about the HD version. Did you use it in handheld mode at any point, or whatever they call it, off TV play? Did you ever use that?
No, I kept meaning to, but I just never got round to doing it. No, I didn't.
I think I did it by accident once.
Did you?
We're done.
I said this to you before, but what I really enjoyed, and I wish, and you'll never get it because it's too much work, but it's the best thing about the Wii U controller. So I played most of the game, I'd say about 80% of the game, using the Pro controller.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that I could just sit with the big controller on my lap, and I just never had to press pause and move into the menus. I could just sort of navigate the menu, and if I wanted to change whatever weapon it was, I just look down, drag it across, and then
I think
just
that's
carry on playing.
so good.
It's so good, so good.
It's one of the best uses of the gamepad that they ever did, was just to have the amount of quality of life stuff they did. Like you say, you can like basically do all your inventory management while Link's just sat in a boat flying around. The game actually has moments of downtime that you can then use.
You can do your inventory management. You can like pull out and check. And the other thing that I noticed as well, which is great, and I often find myself looking at my screen controller rather than the TV, is that if you're navigating yourself around the world, you can see Link in sort of the direction he's facing in real time. So I'd be like, oh, I need to go there. And then you pull up whatever your Tingle map, and you could still see it on top. And it's like, oh, I need to get to this square. So you just like align yourself looking at the map, and then just sit, do your inventory management, or just like enjoy being in this world that feels lovely to be inside.
Imagine the ball ache of having to find all the treasure from all the treasure maps without seeing yourself on the treasure map, and just putting him directly on the X and then pressing the button. Because when you find the treasures in the real world, they're just the little random treasures that are just like 50 rupees. I was always getting that wrong. Like, I was always going too far past it. I couldn't slow down quickly enough. And then in the end, sometimes I would just give up and be like, I can't get the pinpoint location of this stupid chest.
I'm blanking on it. What's that game called? It's a Super Nintendo JRPG. It came out in the 3DS as well. It's one of the few JRPGs that I really like, but I haven't completed. Chrono Trigger, yeah. That's another example of like the Nintendo controller making me wonder how you ever played the original, because it's lovely. Yeah. Again, that's another one that you can have your inventory out and map
or you
out.
can select the moves while the battle's on the top screen without having to pause it or whatever. Yeah, this is a really, it's not like a proper remake, like Resident Evil remake or whatever. The remastering they've done, I think, is really lovely. Like the vibrancy of the colours in this game, the way that like the
one thing
the horizon kind of bristles with blue colour, and the sun is so powerful and so shiny. It's so nice, and it's not just that. They've thought about so much in this game in terms of, like, as you said, having the map screen there, the inventory management, the fast sale, stopping you having to fuck around with that, and obviously the end of the game where, as we touched on earlier, the game was rushed. They ran out of time. They cut out 2 dungeons and replaced it with this Triforce fetch quest. In the original game, you are finding the 8 pieces of the Triforce by going and doing whatever it is you need to do and getting a map, and then having to go pay Tingle, that fucking scumbag piece of shit, 398 rupees to decipher the chart and then go find the treasure. In this game, I think there's only 3. Is there only 3 Triforce charts in the end for this one?
Yeah, 3.
And then the rest of it, you just get the Triforce piece.
Yeah,
there.
you get the one. There's like one Triforce chart that's got. How many have you got to get? 7, 8. It must be 8 because this is a Japanese game. So there's 8. I think it's something like 5 you get on the first map, and then you get 2, and then you get 1 on the other map, or something like that. You get most of them on one map. I would actually say though, I know it's as a result of being rushed, but I feel that ultimately the game is better served by being made to interact with the overworld more. So, like,
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, for sure.
I think that, I remember when I first realized how much effort had to go into and getting all the Triforce shards, I was like, oh my fucking god. But actually, in the act of doing it, it makes you explore that. Like, by that point, I'd already collected all the map pieces for all the different bits. But I still love the way that it forces you to interact with the world in which the dungeons don't do. So the dungeons are interesting, in their own right, and they have their own sort of theme to them and their own
Yeah.
sort of, and they actually give you a nice break. And I found that when I was doing the dungeons and I was finishing the dungeons, I was actually looking forward to getting back to the overworld, to getting back to sailing on the sea again. And so,
Yeah.
so they do a good job of sort of breaking up the momentum of the game, because I think if you were just doing sailing non-stop for however long the game is, 20 hours or something like that, that would get boring. But the way that the dungeons, and they're long, I found out they were surprised. I found the dungeons
There's not a lot of them, and they
surprisingly
are,
long.
yeah.
Like I say, by the time I got back to them, I was itching to get back out on the sea, and I think that the end bit, because of how the game ends, and because you have to sort of go back to an old save pre-Ganon fight if you want to continue playing, which I tend not to like, but understand why they do it. I like that the game is just like forcing you, this is your world that you live in, and really makes you explore it, makes you sort of engage with the different bits. And what I think is really fun as well is that you encounter a lot of the stuff with the Triforce shards throughout the world that you were encountering. I'd already encountered these islands and sort of prodded at them, and then realized, I don't feel like I can do anything with these, or I don't know what to do, and then I moved on, and the game brings you back, and it's like, whoa, you've got all this stuff now, you've got to go do this. And I thought that was so well done. So yeah, I think ultimately it's maybe it was rushed because of that, but I think it actually ends up working in the game's favor. I don't know how you.
Yeah, I think in the streamlined way, yes. In this version, it absolutely does. Because as you said to me, you text me, and I remember you saying like, "This is a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be." Because it really isn't just, there's a chart here, go find the chart and then go get the thing under the sea. There's some of them you have to like go to one island to get a certain item, then you have to go to another island to use that item, which will then give you the chart, which you then have to go get translated, and then you have to go get the Triforce piece.
Yeah,
there's like a little mini dungeon on the way. The
one that sticks out is when you start looking for the Triforce pieces, or is it a map or something? There's something you're going looking for. It must be a Triforce piece. And you've got to go to an island to get the arrows, which give you the fire.
This is, I think,
arrows.
for that's for the two temples at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it's to get into a temple. That's right. And then you've got to take your fire arrow to a lava island so that you can freeze the lava island and get inside. And when you get inside, maybe it's the opposite way around, but then you get
use the ice arrows to freeze the fire.
Boots, and then you can use the iron boots to do a bit on the ice. There's something you need to do in the ice level, and then the ice. That gives you a bracelet, and then when you get the bracelet, you then can go all the way back to the island that you were trying to get into in the first, and it goes from being something you're like, I just need to go here and get that, to being that fucking massive mission.
It's making the overworld a mini dungeon of itself, or rather a really large dungeon spread out over loads of places. Yeah, because you've got to freeze the fire island with your ice arrows. That then gives you either the bracelet or the boots, and then the bracelet allows you to pick up the stone head. The boots allow you to not get blown away by the wind, and then obviously then they're utilized in the dungeons as well.
And it's what's interesting about that. It's like, for me initially, it's there's a few games that do it. The Souls games are quite good at it. It's initially like, I find quite frustrating, but then when you're forced to engage with it, because this is how you progress. You're like, actually no, this is quite a smart way to sort of make you engage with the world at large. It's not just like, because like, say it takes you 2 hours to do that, a dungeon is probably about 2 hours, and it's actually, again, interesting, because what it does is it creates life in the overworld in a way that just making you go into a dungeon wouldn't do. And
absolutely.
It makes you like, it just makes my favorite and most interesting thing. I think I do this all the time when we do a podcast, but I love, if I was ever to find my way to being lucky enough to work in the games industry, one of the things that I would love to know more about and be interested in and be an expert on is how people create worlds that feel lived in, feel real, and feel like you're not just moving around this static environment and poking at different buttons, which essentially is what you're doing in video games. But they actually create a world that feels lived in, it feels real, it feels like this place, and actually having to move around and not maybe having a dungeon or two less, but actually replacing that with game mechanics within the world I actually think makes the game much more valuable to me, and I think it makes it much more of and I don't want to overplay it because I know I'm bad for hyperbole in these podcasts, but like it just makes it a more valuable experience. It makes it a more important experience. It makes it a better game in my opinion.
Yeah, it justifies the whole premise of the game, right? It justifies the point of the sea being there and the sailing by making it integral to how you actually get to do the main parts of the game by engaging properly with the sailing.
You've explained in 30 seconds what I took about 10 minutes to do, but succinctly and perfectly.
But it was 10 glorious minutes, yeah. But yeah, I totally agree. I think
people listen to this podcast can't see is that Alex has just had an erection on screen the entire.
They couldn't hear the bang of the underside of the table, that's for sure. Yeah, without bogging it down,
that's Mario. Sorry.
With the extra getting the charts by giving you the pieces of the Triforce for doing basically the key fundamental part of that specific shard's objective, definitely makes it feels better and more rewarding rather than getting a chart for everything that you do, then having to go pay to get it translated, then having to go sail and find it. They struck a much more acceptable balance that really makes it seem worthwhile rather than an afterthought. It's totally changed like a perspective on the end of this game for sure. Apparently people, because they cut these 2 dungeons, people were expecting them to be added to the HD version, and everyone was saying, "Oh, put them in." And Al Numa has said like they basically used those dungeons in subsequent games, so they kind of can't. They've never actually said what they are though, and they aren't the exact dungeon, but like they've taken loads of elements that they created for this and put them in others. Twilight Princess has got the most dungeons, I think, of all of them. It's got 9, whereas this one has 7 in inverted commas. Skyward Sword's got 8, so
this has
I
got
think
7.
A lot of people
7.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't feel like 7. Yeah, it doesn't feel like 7, but basically they are listed.
Ganon, the Ganon is definitely the
Ganon's tower is fucking shit, and it always is in all the Zelda games. Just I'll do some really rudimentary like throwbacks to this dungeon in like 1 or 2 rooms, then fight the boss again. Like just bollocks. That's definitely the rushed part at the end of that.
I agree with that actually. Because like they literally make like when you're refighting all the bosses again like almost black and white. It's like here's your and they also, which I noticed as well, is they rewind your inventory so that you've only got the inventory you would have had when you were fighting
unequip
them.
Everything.
Yeah.
And then when they take you out of the dungeon and give you all your stuff, but they unequip it again. The amount of times I have to put my fucking arrows back, it's doing my nut. But yeah, the 7 dungeons are you've got Dragon Roost Cavern and the Forbidden Woods. They're the first 2 that you do to get the pearls, because you've got 3 pearls you got to get. And again, slightly feels rushed when the 3rd pearl's like, oh, just go talk to a fish. It'll give you the last one. But we'll talk about those 2 first.
I just want to throw. I just before you go, because I'm really interested in this. I just want to throw in. This is maybe the most water in a video game that I've not hated ever. Like because David Smiley, the noted water swimming hater in video games. This is absolutely fine. There's no underwater sections. It's fine.
Yeah, apart from in a cutscene where he wears a
bubble suit.
Yeah, bubble suit. I guess the king can make them happen. He's totally fine. And then, isn't he like just like at the end of the game? Sort of he's totally like
try to touch one.
Oh yeah, they do. That's beautiful, that moment. Yeah. And then they're just chilling next to the pirate ship, just swimming. He's waving and he's swimming. But every other time in the game where he's been swimming, he starts to die if he doesn't get out of the water quickly enough. Not under the water, just in the water.
Everybody's just waving at each other all the time for about 10 minutes. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
That grandma, the first time where he waves at his grandma and he gets that little look on his face like, goodbye, grandma. Might never see you again.
Oh, the grannies.
That shit gets me every time. That's like the beginning of Up, man. When he's waving at his grandma and she's like, bye, Link. And he's like, oh. Because she doesn't even wave, does she? She just looks at her. She's just in the house, like looking out. And he's the only one who sees that little old biddy And he just gives her that really solemn-faced wave. Like, I'm sorry, Grandma.
The only thing
Beautiful.
I want to pick up on is that I went back to the granny with a bunch of empty jars, and she'll only give me one jar of her soup. Like, if I'm coming back...
You have to throw the fairy on her, don't you, to get her to even start doing that, right?
Yeah, so you go back and she's like sleeping, so you've got to go to get a fairy, and you lob a fairy at her and she's fine, and she's like, oh, here, have some soup. But she'll only ever give you one jar of soup, and she's like, if you ever want any more, come back. It's like, I've got about 4 jars. Give me 4, and we'll...
You got all the bottles?
Nah, I think I only ever had 2, if I'm honest.
I think I ended with 3 in the end. Did you do the fucking block puzzle in the cabana? I hate those.
Couldn't be fucked.
I hate those, and I'm so desperate to do them every time. I'm always like, oh, I'm pretty good at these. I'm not. I hate it.
I like them. There's a game that I used to play. It's like a...
You only get rupees for that, by the way, so it was a waste of time.
It's called... Oh, okay, that was fine, because by then I had 1,000 in my box. In my little...
Did you ever get the 5,000 one?
Nah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, no, I do like... There's a game I used to play called Rush Hour, which is like there was a car, and like cars could only move in their straight line. Depends. So like obviously if they're vertical, they can move up and down. If they're horizontal, they can move left and right. And your job was to get this red car and figure out the puzzle so that you could drive out of the puzzle.
Is it a
box.
mobile game?
No, it was an actual physical game I had when I was a kid.
Oh, sorry,
then,
right.
So like and then you'd have this card and it would show you how to set the game up, and then you'd, depending on what difficulty you're going, try and figure it out. Yeah, that's what those sort of blocky movie puzzles do remind me of, and yeah, I like them. But I couldn't be.
I think I trick myself into thinking I like them, and then I'm like, no, I don't like these.
The
first one of those I ever played was Bart versus the World, I think.
Bart, oh yeah, good one. Yeah, I realised the puzzle you were doing was that snotty kid that follows you about at the start of the game, and that kid
was great.
I don't think there's anything that gives me the bulk more than a kid with a snotty nose.
That kid's great.
You just see the yellow bit poke, and I was like, ugh! So I just had to.
It's so funny that you're just running away from that little dickhead. Like, go away!
Yeah, and he's just following you.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Oh, running away. One of my favourite, I absolutely loved it, when you're playing hide and seek with the bee gang, or whatever they're called, the little stingers, or whatever.
Killer bees, yeah.
Killer bees, that's it.
Stingers.
Yeah.
Or like Sting from WCW.
Yeah.
Stinger splash in the corner.
When you find them, the way they run away from you is fucking
yes!
magic. It's so like arms down, straight down,
yeah,
hip thrust forward, just running. So good.
They've all got to get a little line in as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you were right actually. And then they make you go talk to that fucking child predator in the school. Don't tell anyone. Jesus Christ. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I really like Windfall Island. There is so much depth to that island, considering it's one of the very, very few that has interactive people in it. Mm-hmm. Probably the only one really that actually is like an actual typical like RPG village setting. Because you got the Dragon Roost and the forest shit, but they're really just housing a dungeon and then you bugger off.
It made me.
One of them's got a kick-ass letter sorting game, but other than that.
This is probably funny to nobody else but me, but I just find it. I just kept having a little giggle about it because, like, you go to Windfall Island and you're right. It's probably the most fun place to be. It's really interesting. You go around, you talk about, but as you're moving around speaking to people, they are so happy in their little island, but they don't want any foreigners coming in. And I was just like, this is just Britain, isn't it? This is just like they just don't want people coming in. They're just quite happy.
Yeah. UKIP Island.
Yeah, UKIP Island, exactly. Yeah, just made me have a giggle. Yeah, because remember when you go there and the pirates are there and you're talking about it and there's like room and you're speaking to the people in the shops and the coffee shops. You're like, what would I do if a pirate came in? And you look around and there's like pirates sitting around their shop. You're like, I don't know what you would do.
Yeah,
what would you do?
Fucked.
Maybe you would just give them a coffee if they asked for a coffee. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
How much did you actually engage with on that island? Did you do the Ferris? Did you get the Ferris wheel moving?
No, I didn't. And the other thing I didn't do, which was bugging me, is you walk around that island and there's these little turret things, and I couldn't figure out what I was meant to do with those. And there was the odd thing in this game that I was like, I'm not looking up a guide. If I figure it out, great. If I don't, I don't. And I was like, I'm enjoying the fact that this game is encouraging me to discover the wonders of this game.
And again, it gives you helping hands to discover without being too obvious. Like the fish will tell you hints about stuff. The guy with the telescope will be looking at things in the distance, and he'll start saying cryptic shit.
Yeah. You've
got different maps like the Incredible chart that will tell you here's where you go, here's what. Yeah, so it doesn't handhold, but it does a really clever way, I think, of like unveiling its secrets.
Do you know the one I really? Yeah, sorry.
So that stuff there, by the way, is the whole trading thing. So you know the weird little like Inuit guy, who has that shop, who talks about the sale, does the auctions.
Yeah,
he gives you. Does he give you a flower in your delivery bag or something? You got to go find all these little merchants and like you just go trade stuff.
I didn't do any of that.
And eventually you get like, I don't know, 25 different things, and then you can plant them in those little things around the.
Is that
something happens for doing that? Oh, I don't know, but I don't know what it is.
Do you know there's a girl on that island that at night, if you go, she stands near the auction house.
Yeah. You got to follow her around because she goes nicking out of the safe.
Because she'd be standing next to her, and I keep speaking to her, and she'd be like, "Get away from here!" And I was like, "You're obviously a mission, but I am not. I'm not figuring out what you are."
You've got to like stealth after her, and she then tries to nick out of the safe of the shop. The Inuit guy's shop. She tries to nick out of that. That's how you get the bottle. That's where I got my third bottle.
She stands next to that shop during the day.
She does. She starts working for him. She is previously. So you know when you start on Windfall Island, there's an old man who keeps coming up to you like, "Please listen to me," and he tries to get you to listen to his story about how his daughter's been kidnapped.
Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot about him, and then I assume I found his daughter when I opened the cage.
You did. So his daughter is also kidnapped alongside like a rich girl, which ends up. So your sister gets kidnapped by the bird. Also, the old man's daughter and the rich guy who owns the auction house's daughter all get kidnapped. When they come back to Windfall Island after you've rescued them, the rich girl, her dad has spent all of his money trying to get her saved, and he's paid it all to the pirates, who apparently rescued her or took her back to him. And then the poor girl, she had some kind of weird fucked up romance with a moblin, and he gave her loads of necklaces that she gave to her dad, and then her dad sells them. So that old guy ends up becoming the rich guy, and then the rich guy ends up becoming... Did you ever go back and see a big fat guy by the tree, then dressed in rags? They basically swap positions. So their two families switch around. So the poor people become rich and the rich people become poor. And the previous old man turns into a right dickhead who's just like this rich swat who's in the auction house.
I did go into a rich guy's house and smash up his pots, and then he fined me for smashing his pots. Is that the guy?
Yeah, well, he then becomes poor at the end. And his daughter... previously the rich girl is the girl who starts nicking out the safe, who's working at the shop, and she says, "Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm stealing from it, but I used to be really rich, and my dad spent all his money trying to get me back, and now I'm trying to nick stuff."
Interesting.
Quite an interesting little dichotomy.
Okay, that is good. That is a cool little story, and this is, I don't know. I get again like, and I don't know. I think I've complained about this a few times in these podcasts, but because genuinely I don't know what the answer is, but like on one hand, when these games create these sort of side quests and you discover them and you complete them, like Elden Ring does it all the time, the Dark Souls games do it all the time, they don't signpost you, but if you can figure it out and just sort of check the boxes off, it feels so rewarding. But at the same time, I'm also sad that I've missed out on a bunch of side quests, because like, I don't know, like my sort of window into thinking about video games critically is probably through like an RPG window, and an RPG will just list all the quests you've got to do, and you can methodically work through all the quests. And the Witcher 3 4K mode, or whatever it is, the current gen re-release is about to come out tomorrow, maybe. I'm definitely going to give that a go, because I've still never played the DLC, and
me neither.
there's something fun and satisfying about knowing that you can just not miss stuff. But at the same time, that game also has that stuff, because I remember after finishing that game, I just sort of started exploring the islands, looking for stuff that I hadn't uncovered, and I found a foggy island that had a whole side quest that the game never ever funnels you towards. So I don't know where I don't like I say, like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I think ultimately where I'm going with this is, I think it's a shame that I've missed out on that stuff. But I did get told about it. I just didn't know where to go with it. So I guess it's my fault. When we're talking about,
I mean,
sorry, carry on. I was
going to ask you a whole bunch of stuff, whether you've done it or not. One thing I was gutted that I didn't do was did you go to the Gulf Island? Did you do that?
No, missed that.
There's an island where you've basically got to like use the Deku leaf to waft this like big ball into holes, and like it's like golf. It's like a little mini golf course. Did you do the shooting game where you're on an island and you got to shoot cannons at ships in the distance? You've only got a certain number of shots. Did you do that one?
I found that hard. I did there's when you play battleships as well, which is on Windfall Island.
Did you get the record under 20 moves and you
for
get
battleships? I did. Yeah, I made sure I did that. This is another thing actually that I need to write down before, because I've been writing down things that come to my mind. It's like something that I never realized, and I don't know if that is. I assume it's not unique to this Zelda game, but it's just something I've not ever picked up before. This game is funny. This game,
it is
in deliberately so, like in a way that I didn't expect it to be. I thought this game was just a simple, fun, barefaced adventure game for kids. It's nothing like that. There's so much depth to it. I mean, like, we've already touched on like the amount of side quests you can go do if you go looking for them. But like the dialogue in this is funny. Like, and what reminded me of that is when we were talking about the battleships and the firing the cannons. The way the guy pulls up the wooden block and he just like pretending he's playing like a role playing game. And then there's the guy that's dancing in front of which is probably something deeply fucking tragic, like some in his family's grave. He's funny as well. And then the guy when you sort of break into the bomb shop on that island, Windfall Island, as well.
Or even when you just go in before that and he tells you to piss off.
Yeah.
And you've got like 3 lots of bombs and they're like 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 300 rupees.
Yeah.
It's like, you cannot buy this. Get out. And then he obviously gets his comeuppance later.
The auction house is really fun. You talked about it before. Like, when you're winning an auction, Link is like dancing about. Everybody else is like deadpan serious. And he's like having the time of his life. This game is really funny in a way that I was not ready for or expecting. And it's nice. It's really cool. And even the enemies to an extent are quite funny. I found the what are they, like the pig enemies with the spears? They're quite funny. Like, they just look a bit gormless. They're a bit silly.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know if it's necessarily them, but some of the enemies where if you can disarm them, whether you knock their swords out of their hand, and obviously it's quite fun to pick up their swords and hit them with it. That was something that they wanted to expand. That's one of the early things they thought of when they were developing the game.
That feels Breath of the Wild-esque to me.
Yes. They clearly went back to that, I think, for Breath of the Wild and thought, let's revisit that. But if you've disarmed a bunch of enemies and you take a bomb out, they apparently just shit themselves and run away. So if you knock their sword out and then just hold a bomb over your head, they're like, "What the f*** are you doing?" They just run away.
Psycho kid with a bomb, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
There's so much character to the game. It's really cool. It's
like we were talking about like quests that you sort of stumble across. This is one that you sort of semi stumble across, but also it's got a Triforce shard, so you've got to do it. But the ghost ship side quest was particularly notable to me. Like, it's really, really good in that, like, you've got to go and discover the map. And then you've got to go and like.
I went and tried doing it before I got the map. I kept doing things I was too smart for my own good.
Is it there? Can you do it without the map?
You can't. You just go straight through it. You can't. You can sail towards it, but you just.
I don't know if I like that. I like the idea that you can.
I'm not sure if
No,
somebody told me that I
don't
needed
know.
something
I
to get
don't
on
know.
there. I don't know.
I'm split on that. I like the on one hand, I like I like the notion that you can complete a quest without necessarily having to sort of tick all the boxes and sort of stumble across it. There's something quite exploratively nice about that, but also being able to complete it without working out its secrets. Maybe
There
this one
must be
specifically.
something that told me I needed the map for it. There must be some. How did you find that you needed that?
Guide. I can't even.
Yeah, see, I think I looked at a guide as well because I bought the strategy guide. But there must be something that tells you can't get into the ship unless you have this. But
So
I don't know
yeah,
what it is.
so what I ended up doing was because on when you're looking for the shards in the first map I got for all the shards, it's like got 5 on it or something like that. There's one that's got a shard on it in a ghost ship and it sits off the map. So I was like,
I think that map
don't know what to
actually
do
does
with
tell you where they all are. You just need to have. You only had 5 on there because the other 3 are the ones you get the chart for, and it adds them to the map after you've got the. So originally, it probably would have had maybe nothing on it, or maybe just the ghost ship or something else.
Maybe I
But
stumbled
because you get 5 of the shards directly in this version. Those 5 are on the map, and then the 3 that aren't on there. Once you find the Triforce chart and get it deciphered by Tingle, then it gets added to the Incredible chart.
Right. Okay.
So you can
So you can use the incredible chart. You can.
So that had 5 on it first because you hadn't found the charts for the.
Yeah.
3,
So once you find the
3.
other charts, it adds it to the incredible chart. Yeah.
After you've paid that scumbag to decipher it for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the other one that threw me. I can't remember what the actual. I did it last night, so I don't know why I can't remember. There's a Triforce shard that sort of straddles 2 zones.
Yeah, that did my head in. That did.
Yeah, I was circling about for a bit until
Yeah, me too.
Until I figured out what that was.
That was on. Yeah, there's some kind of Stone Watcher Island or something. I think. I can't remember now. But
I don't know if we've covered it yet, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun yet, but I think I did say.
All I want to talk about now is bosses and dungeons. So
okay, so yeah,
everything else is fair game.
Before we move on to bosses and dungeons, I do think because I want to finish this podcast positively because I largely liked this game and I really loved it, and it was such a nice, fresh, nice feeling game. But like there are things that annoyed me about it. Like I said it to you in a text, the Wind Waker ended up annoying me. I found that having to play the tune and then listen to the tune again, and then if you were at a place where you had a friend with you, you had to then listen to them play it again. I found that annoying. I eventually found it quite annoying that if you wanted to change the wind direction or you wanted to do a fast travel, you had to play the tune, then watch him replay the tune every single time. That was annoying, and to the point that actually using the Wind Waker I find quite tiresome. I don't know, how did you feel about that?
No, I definitely felt that as well. Certainly for stuff like with a ghost ship, for one, where you've got to make it so that the moon's at the right angle. Sometimes you had to do it like 8 times over and over again. The one thing that I did notice that I don't know if it's in the original or not, but if you're in a dungeon and you've got to do the command melody, I did notice that the first time you play it, he would then play it and it would go, "You've played the command melody." Every other time that you did it, it wouldn't tell you that anymore. It would just go straight to taking over the other person.
So I don't
know if the original did that or whether it made you watch him play it every time.
Because I found so you'd walk up to those big stone tablets that you clearly had to play the melody.
Yeah.
I found it quite, and maybe it's just me being a dumbass, but I found it quite difficult to tell whether the game knew that I was doing the right thing or not. So like sometimes I'd be like standing in front of it, right, up, down, left, right, blah 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 blah. So I'd memorize it and I'd walk up to the tablet, pull out my Wind Waker and play it, and then nothing would happen, and then I'd be like, "But I've played it. That's definitely right. That is definitely right." And then I'd like come away and I'd go up to it and press A and be like, "Oh, you can play this," and it's like, "I fucking know. I've just been playing it in front of you for the last 5 minutes." Now you play it and it'll do all the fucking thing again and make you go through all the 3 times. I'm like, I've been doing that.
Was this because your mate wasn't with you or something? Was that maybe why?
Maybe I left them behind, but yeah, I found the interaction with these stone tablets quite fucking irritating at times.
Let's talk about that actually. Let's talk about the companion dungeons.
I didn't enjoy. I enjoyed the dungeons. I didn't enjoy the companions, like because you've essentially
I think
just got to carry them around above your head everywhere you go.
I love how you walk into a room with a bunch of enemies. You're like, oh shit, I better put you over there. This isn't for you. Stay over there. I definitely prefer the Earth Temple with the light reflecting to the Wind Temple.
Yes,
for
100%,
all day long.
Yes, I quite enjoyed that actually. The light reflecting temple was a good one.
I think my favourite is probably the Tower of the Gods, though. I think that's the coolest temple with the. Technically, it's a water temple, I suppose, because you've got your boat in there.
You've nailed it. Yeah, you're right. I think that's the best one. You've
the aesthetic of that, though, where it's kind of almost like this, like futuristic tech mixed with like a old style temple. Because that's another dungeon you don't really, I guess, think of. Because you've got the first two where you get the pearls, then the Tower of the Gods, then the two Earth and Wind temples. Then you've got Forsaken Fortress is technically one, which you do twice, really. Okay. And there's a boss at the end of that, obviously, because you've got to fucking twat that bird on the face with the big mallet, which is wicked. And then obviously you've got Ganon's Tower, which is a joke. But the Earth Temple I think is my favorite. But Tower of the Gods is my favorite. Where you've got to command those little statues to get into the room, and then the boss of that is okay. It's the big hands and the face. It looks cool. But they did that in the previous Zelda game.
I also think that like these things are always ruined for me now because we play Apex Legends. But I found that when you pull out your what do you call it, like your drill thing and your hook shot, it just didn't move quick enough for me. Like you were
using the gyro, weren't you? Did you use the gyro controls?
I actually should have, because that would have been helpful, but no, because I was using the Pro Controller.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I ended up having to use
I turned them off.
And I just found that they were far too slow. So, like, again, like, there was the other bit where you've got to fight that snake thing in the sand, where you've got to grab its tongue. It just didn't react as quickly as I needed it to.
I think maybe that for you is probably, with the greatest of respect, probably like a lack of Zelda experience that's making you try and do it first person. Because that boss, which is an incredible looking boss, I was just targeting him every time and doing it that way. Because obviously if you target them, Link will aim perfect every time.
I somehow got through that game and didn't know you could do that. Because again, I had that difficulty with the puppet.
If you hold down the left, was it L? If you hold down L, obviously then it Z. They used to call it Z targeting on the N64 ones, but it'll obviously it will lock onto them. So I would just lock
I was finding, and I don't know what had happened there then. So I was finding that was it ZL was the target mode. When I pulled that, he would just target whatever's in front of him. So like if I had my back,
I mean it's you can't change the target, which is annoying. Yeah.
So if I had my back to an enemy and there was no enemy in front of me and I pressed ZL, he would target nothing, and I would have to untarget it, turn him, and then target it again. It wasn't like an auto target. So maybe I have to accept I've obviously missed something there because I struggled with the controls for a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm doing my own sort of thing, but basically what I would do is like I'd use the first person aiming to get close enough to what I wanted, then target it to make sure I don't target the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think
then I know that Link's not going to miss at that point, and then I just fire it. Rather than doing all of it like a manual aim, I'd manual aim close enough till I could see the yellow like triangle over, then target it so it goes red, then fire the arrows or whatever.
So the manual aim. So
I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
I struggle with the tongue thing, and then is it Puppet Ganon where you've got to shoot the tail of something?
You've got to cut all his strings, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to cut all his strings. I think it's
and the fucking spider version, and then all the other things, I
think it's.
I struggled with that.
His third form is the one I struggled with.
Which apparently
wasn't turning quick. Like his tail was moving faster than I could turn.
I really struggled with that as well. I think you can actually hit him if he comes close to you in the face. You can hit him and then he like stuns him. But there's also a cheat there where you can stand in a doorway and he can't hurt you.
See.
Oh no, wait, that's somebody else. That's the hand one. Sorry, you can stand in the doorway.
The hand ones are fine. The hand ones I could get out of the way of for the most part. It was all right.
Yeah, the fucking ghost one is a terrible boss. It's probably one of the shittest, easiest bosses.
Was this where you got to shine the light on him and then lob him at the wall?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cool idea, but yeah, just so easy. He never touches you. He doesn't do any attacks.
Yeah, he was the easiest,
really.
but especially by the time you fight him the second time, you've got that special move where you could just like spin and attack everyone in the room.
Oh, you went and got that, did you? For your
Yeah.
I never even used that on there. I didn't even think about that.
I used that. The only
Damn, I missed a trick there.
That's the other thing I've got written down is the belt guy could not be effed trying to fight him to hit him 300 times.
Oh, I did that. I can't remember what you get.
I spent too long. I assume you get a heart piece eventually, but yeah, I think I did it the first time, and I was like, okay, this is quite fun. Then I started doing it again, and I found that fighting him, the A dodge or the counter button, just wasn't working for me as reliably as as I felt like it should have been, and I just found it a frustrating experience. So I was like, not worth it. Not worth it. I've got enough hearts. Don't need it. Bye.
Yeah. How many did you end with when you got
I did
to
it the first time, so he called me a knight. Oh, how many hearts?
Yeah.
15, I think I had by the end.
That's exactly what I had as well, yeah.
Yeah, I felt quite comfortable with that.
If you do enough of those trading merchant things, the guy in the shop at Windfall Island gives you the last item, which I'm assuming was a gap on your, like the one and only gap on your inventory screen, which is like this magic attack that basically you don't take any damage, you just lose rupees if you get hit.
Oh, yeah,
so I basically used that towards the end of the game. Yeah, that was quite cool.
The light arrows are really good fun when you get them. They're just so OP.
Sweet.
Yeah, because I was trying to fight my way up that hill, like sort of stairway mountain, to fight all the guys, and I was like, oh, you could just shoot them all. And just started shooting folk, and it just wipes them out in one go.
Yeah, I think you can do that with the Phantom Gannons, right? You can just shoot them with it.
Yeah, you can, because I
was got to play tennis with them.
I was initially playing tennis with them, and then I think I glanced at a guide, and it was like, just shoot them. I was like, okay, this is brilliant. Yeah. But that's another thing the game does really well. In the, like, we spoke about the pig enemies with the spears. They were like at the start of the game where you've got to stealth them, and eventually you're just battering them without even thinking about it.
Love it.
That is actually something the game does quite nicely. Is like without you even noticing it, gradually increases your power till you're just wiping out people that were actually problematic in your previous.
Yeah, they actually set those guys up as a mini boss as well. In the first dungeon, the Dragon Roost Cavern, that bird drops one in on you, and you've only ever run away from them in Forsaken Fortress at that point.
That's right.
And it just drops this bastard right in front of you. That's a really cool idea, that dungeon. The fact that you're basically underneath a dragon's asshole that's getting bothered by a big scorpion, and you've got to drop the ceiling on the fucker's head before you can hurt him. What? Just mental.
It's really good.
There are so many memorable moments in this game. It's like, I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that you go back to Hyrule Castle and everybody's frozen, and then you get the Master Sword and everybody fucking comes alive. That's so cool. It's just like basically an onslaught of dickheads in a big room.
That's really fun.
Love it.
Yeah. Did you? The other one that I thought I better mention while I was playing it the other night is when you get the Triforce shard that's on your starting island, and you've got to drop through the sort of dungeons, and you've got to fight.
I did the whole thing of that.
That goes on forever.
It does.
And then I got to the very bottom, and then there's a bit where you can shine a light on. You can shine your like.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Like, I saw it, and I was trying to walk over to it, and I accidentally walked into the thing, and it put me back up to the start, and I was like, oh no. And then I had to, and then I was like, no, I just dropped down again. So I tried to drop down again. I realized it was going to make me do the whole thing again. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So then I just did the whole first. So I did the whole thing, start to finish. Got to the bottom, then did the first section all again, and then so that I could escape and get back out. What do you know what's in that thing that I missed?
Yeah, if you get all the way to the end and do the last bit, you get a mask that when you equip it, he looks fucking weird. He's got this horrible mask on for the rest of the game. It shows you the enemy's health bar when you target them.
So that's what I missed, because I got all the way to the bottom. It took me so long to get down to the bottom, and then I fucked it and went back to the top again like an idiot. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care.
It wasn't worth it. It really wasn't worth it. It does show you boss health, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting actually.
But not Ganon. You can't see his health.
Hmm.
Maybe that's because you basically does he have health? He's just shooting his asshole 3 times. I can't remember. Oh, that was quite a good boss.
Yeah,
All of the end, I think. The Phantom, the puppet Ganon's good. The actual fight with Ganondorf, I found that quite tough, especially when you have to try and get Zelda to shoot your shield and
yes.
reflect it back on him. I found that quite tricky, but yeah, not annoying, just tricky.
No, but tricky in a sort of interesting way. It was never frustrating to me.
No,
I never
you just
felt
got this
like
big dickhead coming after you. You just got to do it. Like, did you keep talking to her to get her to shoot it at you? Do you have to? Is that what you did? That's what I kept having to do.
there was a part of this boss fight where he was trying to attack me, she was shooting at them, and I was trying to hit him, and we were all missing each other the whole time. And I think I accidentally did that for far too long, and then stumbled across her speaking. She's like, "No, I'll shoot you," and then you bounce your shit.
100%.
Oh right, that's how you do it. And then once you did that, it was fine.
But I mean, after that, I kept having to go up to her to get her to aim it again, because otherwise she wouldn't. So I kept going up, pressing A, and she's like, "Go stand over there, and I'll aim it at you." And
there was a bit of kiting.
Otherwise, she wouldn't aim at me. Otherwise,
yeah, no, she was okay for me, but it was just a bit of kiting. And what I found I mean, it wasn't overly difficult, but the challenging part for me there was that you get them between each other, but Ganon.
Yeah,
his AI was obviously to advance towards you, so you would have to move, and then you'd have to find a way to sort of reset yourself so that he'd attack you, and then you could move back again. That would allow you to have a bit of time where you're facing each other. But yeah, it was fine. It was fun. It was fun trying to work it out.
Yeah, so that's why if you just go up to Zelda and press A continuously, she'll immediately fire at you. So I just basically spammed that at the end.
Right, okay, that's how you do it.
You don't have to do the positioning. You just run to her and press A, and she'll be like, "I'll fire it now." What was I going to say? Let's. Well, I guess we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. Let's talk briefly about the controls. I think this game actually still feels very fluid, other than the jumping, which I think Zelda's move to having a dedicated jump button has been a godsend, because the ice island, where you've got the time limit after you've melted the ice, I died on that twice. Not died, but ran out of time twice, because he just wouldn't jump off the ice stuff at the right time. I'd get right to the entrance of the cave and he'd just fall in the water, and I'd have to go right back to the beginning. And
a similar issue with was it the Tower of Gods that we were talking about before, where there's the puzzle where you've got to line the boxes up where the water will fill up and then empty, and then you've got to push the boxes into position, fill up, empty, push it, so that you can run across the top with the flaming torch. There was a couple times where I didn't line them up properly, and he would just auto jump over the top of the box, and I find that quite annoying, because it's like, well, I get what you're doing here, and I understand that that's the mechanic of the game, but if this was real life, I just wouldn't jump as far as that. He's not if it was me, I'm not jumping as far as I can each time. I'm aiming for the box.
If you're telling me that Link's got his own agency of a when and how he jumps, make it logical and don't make him kill himself, for fuck's sake.
Exactly. So yeah, that was where I ran into that problem. But for the most part, other than the sort of first person aiming, which I found was a bit too slow. I continually astounded by special Nintendo games how well they handle in retrospect. Obviously, the game we've played recently, Metroid Prime, that is a game that I had to get used to the controls. Whereas this is a game that I knew what I was doing right away, and I never, for the most part, never felt like I was hampered by it being an old game. It just felt like a game I was playing on a different console. It was absolutely fine.
Exactly.
And it handled beautifully. I'd say almost on a par with Super Mario World. It has its aim, and it fulfills it controls wise perfectly, almost.
Other than the fact I couldn't invert the y-axis, that's what fucked me up. I could do it for the first person, but not for the camera normally, which is really weird. So I'd have to undo my brain's muscle memory for the normal camera, and then as soon as I'm aiming, I have to go back to what feels natural. But at that point, it feels unnatural to me. Yeah, oh, it's horrible.
I think this is the thing
don't understand that.
I've said this to you before, that the thing is, it still weirds me out a little bit that I used to be an invert, and then there's a game, and I don't know what it was, but there's a game I played that wouldn't let me invert the controls, and ever since then I've been an uninvert. It's like it just fucking mapped my brain.
Yeah, I guess I probably need. I think it must have been GoldenEye that made me aim like that.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm pretty
I would
sure
be
it was
the same,
GoldenEye.
yeah. I
Max Payne used to be that way as well.
I just think I can do either. I just need a minute. My brain will map. It'll just throw me off for the next game. I think whatever game I play and whatever it defaults to, I am that. And then the next game will be the next thing, whatever it is. It just
I wish I could do that. You can actually do it. This is a completely needless point to make, but on PS5 you can actually set the console so that it automatically changes every single game you play.
That's smart. That's good.
Well, most of the time anyway. I've had a few recently where it hasn't done it, but yeah, you can go in there and say like auto set my Y-axis to be inverted, and it will just do it in every game's menu for me.
Oh, that's useful. That's really good.
British rate.
Yeah, that is really good.
Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think the music in this game is fucking beautiful. I love the opening theme for Outset Island. That makes me smile every single time. Windfall Island is good. The main theme is good. What else was good? What else has got good music in it? Oh, Dragon Roost Island has got beautiful music.
Yeah. We don't encounter do we encounter Gorons in this? We don't encounter Gorons in this game.
They are the merchants that you didn't engage with. They've got a mask on as well, like a shitty mask, where you can kind of see like half of their Goron face, and then the rest of it is all masked up. But yeah, they're the traveling merchants.
Good.
Weirdly, sometimes will then trade. Sometimes the game seems to have done it in a weird way, where sometimes you could trade back the same item you just got off them, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, you've got an exotic flower that you just gave me, you swat." That was weird, but yeah. And yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or bring up? I think I'm rinsed bone dry.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think. Generally, my overall sort of takeaway from this game is that it's a wonderfully innocent and pleasant game to experience, and I think that that's what Zelda should be and is. And I think I said this, and we've touched on this before, but I think what is fascinating was while I was playing this game, I was seeing little behind the scenes insights into what would eventually be Breath of the Wild, which I guess for most Zelda fans is the ultimate Zelda game. Like I say, some of the dungeon makeup, some of the exploration, some of the way that the game encourages you to engage with the world is very Breath of the Wild-esque, and I wonder if they've almost retrospectively learned a lot from this and applied it to their modern games, and it's just a wonderful adventure. And I truly felt like over the last couple of weeks I've had an adventure, and that's what this game wanted to be and what it is, and that's great.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you first said that this game feels like probably the most adventure game I've ever played.
Yeah, I'd say that.
And obviously at the end of the game, the end of the game is the adventure. Let's go on another, because yes, I think they did think about the fact that like if you went all the way, they were going to make the world round at one point. So that if you went right to the far side of the map, to the far east, you'd end up on the west like you would in our world. Or if you went all the way north, you'd end up at the bottom again. So
what happens if you try and go off the map? I never did that.
He's like, "Oh, it's too dangerous to keep going that way. Turn around." But then they realised as well that if they did that, you've already seen the whole world. So the end of the game where they're like, "Let's go find a new Hyrule." It's like, well, I've already been everywhere. I've gone all the way that way and then come up over that way. So I've done it. So they had to be like, no, it's only a part of the world. Otherwise the ending doesn't make any sense. Which is another interesting little idea. Because Skies of Arcadia came out like right at the time they were developing this. And that one, it does have like, if you go all the way to the east, you end up if you go all the way to China and past China, you end up in the USA basically. Is
I do think there's something that like the fact that this game is predominantly water based enhances that. You know, like if I try and imagine this game, and this is a game that you traveled across the world on horse rather than water. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it would have quite the same effect. There's something sort of unknown and I don't know, additionally adventurous about it being.
Yeah,
You're
there
sort
definitely
of,
is.
because it's, I don't know, maybe it's a human thing. You've same as flying, I guess. Like you're somewhere maybe you shouldn't be, and you're sort of, I don't know. Do you know what I mean by that? Like it.
There's also an element with the ocean of you can see the horizon. So
Yeah, and there's something
you can't,
beyond
if you're
that.
in a forest or a
Yes.
field, you can't. But this one, it's like I can see where the sea stops, and I'm going over there because
Yeah.
there's something's going to be over there or whatever. And
Yes.
it is obviously massive. The
Mhm.
game world is fucking huge. And there's something also about, as we said earlier, like just putting your controller down while he's in the boat and just being like, he's in the boat. I'll just let him go because the
You're just
sharks are
having a
shit
sail.
and
Yeah.
the sharks don't even get anywhere near me, so I don't have to worry about the sharks.
You don't. You fucking ignore
Fucking
them.
rubbish. Yeah.
You ignore most of
Sometimes
the
you jump
enemies.
over them for a laugh. I quite like that if you jump with this fast sail and then you hold a direction in the air, there's like a fucking 90-degree turn
Yeah.
when you land. That's a cool little trick. But yeah, most of the time, I don't need to worry about anything other than maybe a hurricane if I don't pay proper attention.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a game that surprised me on many levels.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
It is like a true adventure game. It's funny. It's endearing. It's a lovely world to
Yeah.
exist in, and it was just such a pleasant experience. Which I wonder if is going to be a bit of a contrast to the next game we're about to play.
Yeah, which you can tell them what it is, buddy.
We're about to dive into some God of War Ragnarok.
We are.
Which is going to be interesting. I have some preconceived notions about this. I actually wondered whether it's worth discussing these. I don't know. I'm worried about this game that it's going to be too similar to the last game. I've watched some sort of Let's Plays. I've watched a couple pals play it while I've been just about going to sleep at night, and they're doing the sort of same rigmarole that I did in the last game. I was quite disturbed by. Disturbed is probably the wrong word. The sort of his kid, the interaction with his kid having a bit of a penchant for showing signs of being a bit worrisome. It's putting me off. It's not putting me off a little bit, but it's worrying me a little bit because it's going to make me feel quite uncomfortable. I think maybe the son's going to be a bit of a problem in this game coming. But my predominant worry of this game is how much they're going to. God of War was a fantastic reimagination of the God of War franchise, and it brought the God of War franchise. And I was actually at the gym doing a run the other day, thinking about things that are good at reinventing themselves, and God of War has to be up there as one of the better games that has managed to take itself from it was an amazing game in its time, and then it got old, stale, and tired, and then absolutely Madonna'd itself and just became like one of the premier franchises of the 2020s.
Yeah.
How does it build on that? Especially now we're thinking, like, I've seen people, it's got the same boat sailing stuff. It's got the adult son thing. It's already ratcheted that up. I believe you start with the what do you call it, the Chains of Olympus that he had at the end of the first game, which was a big reveal and a big thing in the first game. I'm expecting to like this game. There's just I've got caveats. I just don't know how you feel about this.
Yeah, I think it's never going to have the same impact as the first game.
It can't. It surely can't.
So that's going to be stripped away from it, and it's going to be going in with stuff that you want it to like subvert your expectations. And if it doesn't, it will be a disappointment. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cleaned up at the Game Awards. It's won almost everything. Game of the Year, best performance, best whatever.
Yep.
So it's been long enough, I think, that I'm ready for this type of game right now, where I'm just going to smack the shit out of people with a big angry bloke and fight Thor or whatever it is I get to do. I don't know. It's a big jump from what we've just played. What have we played before this? What were the previous two games we did?
We've just come off this
Diddy Kong Racing,
and this sort of horror bunch of games we did.
Yeah, there was one between.
Then we had the Summoner Resi.
Yeah.
Let me have a look at my phone. See what have we covered recently. Let's have a quick skulk around. Where is a winner's you? So show archive. So yeah, Diddy Kong Racing, Metroid Prime, Scorn,
Oh,
Luigi's
Metroid
Mansion,
Prime. There we go.
Dino Crisis, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 5, Prey, Super Mario World. No, sorry, this is Super Mario Land and Wario Land. That was a fun podcast. Wolfenstein 3D and Medal of Honor Frontline, another fun one that I forgot about. And the Castlevania as well.
Yeah. So
Super
we've just
Metroid.
basically come off the back of, out of the last 5 podcasts we've done, 4 of them have been Nintendo games. So
this is a fun.
now
new
we're heading
direction.
into.
I'm ready for this.
Yeah. Now we're getting the big boy pants are going back on again, and we're playing some fucking Sony shit.
A game that was released this year, which is nice.
Quite recently as well, yeah.
So yeah, look forward to that. I guess that'll be episode 50 of the Resurrection.
Yeah, we're
Review
aiming that
podcast.
Yeah, we're aiming for that before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we'll do the Game of the Year awards again.
Yeah, which will be fun. I guess that's it. I don't think either of us have got any housekeeping to discuss as yet.
Keep listening to this, you fucks.
Keep listening to this, and I guess we'll speak about stuff in the new year. If you want to follow Alex on Twitter, he is you're at Super Thrillix. Is that what you are these days?
Yeah, buddy.
You can follow me on Twitter, which is at DavidSmiley1. You can send us an email and discuss things that we've been doing on the A Winner Is You podcast to awinnerisyoupod@gmail.com. And if you're listening to this, you can...
Hi, KDB.
Hello. You can search for A Winner Is You podcast on YouTube. And if you somehow find yourself watching this, get on your podcast provider of choice and search for the A Winner Is You podcast, and you will find our audio version there right into your ear holes. And
yeah, you can lock your screen and not have to pay YouTube money to have it carry on playing after you've done it.
Exactly.
That's the beauty of an actual podcast.
And on that bombshell, I've been David, he's been Alex, we have been A Winner Is You, and I'm out.
Bye. Keep gaming even. Fucking hell.
Bye!